All right, we are going to get this meeting started. Thank you so much. We will start off with a call to order.
Kevin Alltucker,
Here.
Denise Diamond,
Here.
Mike Eister,
Here.
Austin Fullnagy,
Here.
Lisa Fragola,
Present.
Steve Mattel,
Here.
Zach Mulholland,
Here.
Sawyer Smith.
Here. Excellent. Zach, thank you for joining us, especially on the East Coast time there. And now we are going to move on to land recognition. Ellen, excellent. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted and destroyed. We start our meeting with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Right. Thank you. Moving on to agenda adoption. Lisa, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I would like to move an agenda item.
Okay.
I would like to move the budget parameters from the action items to discussion items. It's a motion.
Understood. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Lisa, based on your motion, would you like to add any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the motion. Thank you.
Of course.
So I appreciate all the work that has been done on this so far, and I can see where it aligns with some of the feedback we gave last time, but I really feel like there needs to be more specificity in these parameters. It seems a lot like projections still. I'm concerned that some of the numbers are not quite adding up. I'm not sure if other people are seeing that as well. And I'd really like for the board to have more time to get an understanding of what we're approving for budget parameters and to have an opportunity to provide further direction. So that's why I'm requesting that it be moved to the discussion items. And I'd be curious to hear if there's any other board members feel we need to do some additional work on this.
Understood. Any other comments from the board? Mike and then Steve?
I guess I'm not ready to rule out the possibility that we might take action tonight. And if I'm not at that point when it's time to make a decision, I would delay it, but I'm not prepared to vote to move it off of the agenda for action and unless I feel like action isn't warranted when we get there.
Understood. Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to just ask a question. I think of John or anybody else on, from the staff that might have something to say about this. If we were to delay the vote, how might that impact or would that impact other things that you need to do in order to prepare the budget for eventual adoption in May and June?
Thank you. The discussion today on parameters is really just for your information as to where we are in the budget process so far. There isn't anything necessarily for action by the board or a decision or recommendation within that. In a sense, it is throughout the budget calendar that we've established and shared with you. We have really February and March as part of budget development, moving into the budget committee itself's work, April, May, with approval in June. So as part of that whole calendar, this is really just the early indications of parameters. And we heard your feedback in January, which is really valuable. So this kind of puts a little bit more context to those things, and I'll go through that. So in a sense, no action is being asked for today. Just wanted to give you some parameters as to what that looks like so far.
Just a quick follow-up.
Of course.
Just so I'm clear, then the fact that it's listed as an action item potentially is a mistake. There isn't actually something being queued up for a decision by the board?
Yes, correct.
If I could help also with this, one other reason for having it as an action item that was thought through in some ways was to to make sure that we give the board an opportunity, as we did last year, my first year here, to help give us some guidance with respect to some guardrails, with respect to some of these budget parameters. Tuition, for example, I think that's why we gave a range on tuition and some other areas. So what John, Vice Chair Fragala, it's so true that what we gave is a little bit more guidance or information on some of these categories that you heard about last month, I think it was, that John gave. But the reason that it is an action item, and I know that John knows this, the reason that it's an action item is so that we can get just a little bit more specificity from the board related to some of these items.
Lisa?
So again, it sounds like a discussion item to me, because otherwise we'd have to go through it piece by piece by piece and make very specific motions. So and based on the feedback that John gave, it sounds very much like a discussion item. So I still would like to support moving it to the discussion part of the agenda.
Understood. Is it okay if I let Denise speak?
Sure.
Excellent. Great. Denise?
Thank you. We just received, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't know if my colleagues have had a chance to read the 20 some odd pages of suggestions from the suggestion box that are also important for us to review. And at the same time, there would be some specific questions and concerns to clarify some of the items that are listed on the parameters that need to be fleshed out more. So it certainly does sound like a discussion item.
All right. Mike?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'll vote for the motion based on what I've heard. I think we can give the staff direction. They'll understand the direction we're leaning
Absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah, I agree. As a discussion item, I think that's perfectly fine. We've had discussion items before where we've given the cabinet direction, and I'm in support of it as well. So if there's any further discussion, we can now vote to adopt the agenda, and we can adopt the agenda as amended. So. All right. And just because I want to make sure that it's written down, we'll do roll call vote for this one. So.
Kevin Altucher.
Right, the motion on the table is Lisa's motion, and then after that, we'll vote on the agenda.
No, because it's so I double checked with Michael Blade about this. Because it's an amended agenda, we just need one motion to move forward.
So the motion is to approve the agenda with the amendment that is a discussion item. Thank you.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Roll call vote.
Kevin Altucher,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Ister,
Aye.
Austin Fullnaky,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland,
Excellent. It is approved. We are moving on to the board budget committee introductions. Yeah, let me just quickly read off the committee members' names here. Amber Patterson, Charles Kimball, Kajanda Love, Ron Preisler, Sue Cutso George, William Gray, and Siobhan Cancel. On behalf of the board, thank you so much for stepping up. Thank you for your commitment to this institution. I'm also going to pass it all along to the president to say some words, and also any other board member who would like to show their appreciation, especially for their appointee. And I really just want to emphasize to our new committee members that obviously we're going to be discussing the budget parameters, but I also want to emphasize the quarterly financial update. These are documents I think would be great for your review. And also we're going to have some public comment, and it's always good to kind of hear what the public has to say about all this. Dr. Bulge, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your service. And that's what I want to say right now, because we're going to be meeting. I will be meeting with each of you, and I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Any other board members who would like to speak?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Amber for
stepping up and agreeing. And she brings to the Budget Committee a wealth of business and financial knowledge and experience. So thank you, Amber, and the rest of the Budget Committee members. Thank you very much.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just ask Sue Cutzel-George to just raise her hand so folks can see who she is. And just very briefly, Sue has 20 plus years of professional budget experience, mostly in a range of positions at the City of Eugene. She's been appointed by the governor to some statewide boards as well. So it's an incredible wealth of experience. And I'm feeling really lucky that she agreed to join us here and help us through the process this year. Thanks, Sue.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, Mike?
I'd just like to thank everybody, including my appointee, Charlie Kimball. We have a well-qualified group to join our budget committee, and thank you all for being willing to serve.
Excellent. Denise?
Yes, I'd like to thank Ron for stepping up. Again, this is something that gives good balance to the board, as he is a resident from Florence. So thank you very much to all the individuals who are using their time and their talents to be supportive of Lane. We benefit from your wealth of knowledge. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I would just want to also say, we got the chance to review your resumes, your applications and so forth. And thank you. And it's a really impressive group. I really want to mention that and echo that from Mike. And for those who were not selected, again, I said this last time, I want you to still be a part of this institution. There's other committees that we would love for you to be a part of. There's other ways that you can be involved in this institution. So I absolutely want to encourage them to come again and to apply again and be a part of this institution in other ways. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you to everyone who's willing to serve our community in this manner. I'm excited to appoint Kajanda Love, who was also at our last board meeting. Kajanda, I don't know if you want to say hello from the audience, but Kajanda has actually taught at a community college or community colleges, and is passionate about the communities that community colleges serve. And as a correctional officer, she was in charge of overseeing budgets for her division. And so she has experiences in those areas as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. Thank you once again. And yes, again, feel free to stay on. And again, we have some important topics that we'll be discussing that you definitely want to at least listen to. If you're not able to, we'll figure out a way to send you the video so you can still understand the conversations and participate in that in a different way. So thank you again for everyone. Now on to responses to information requests. Any comments, questions in regards to this, this agenda item? Seeing none, we are moving on to public comment. Now, first off, thank you everyone for being here. The board may not respond directly to any issues raised during public comment, but will refer those issues to the president for appropriate action. I also know that in public comment, there's time periods where we're really passionate about what's being said by the speaker, but to keep decorum and also to keep the meeting moving, if rather than applaud, if you can use ASL applause, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, and we'll go ahead and get started. We start with students first for public comment, and then we go down the list.
Yanis Appleton.
Welcome.
Good evening, Sheriff Fulnegi, President Bolger, and the rest of the chair, or the rest of the board, apologies. My name is Yanis Appleton. I'm an art student at Lane, and I wanted to thank you guys specifically for supporting the arts and the Titus Kaphar talk that we had on campus. I've been going to Lane for 2 years. I had no intentions of studying art when I got here, but I found some amazing faculty and a really beautiful community around the arts here. And so actually the Titus Kaphar speak was beautifully timed for my life. I'm applying to 4-year universities right now. I just finished an application to one of the best schools in the country. I'm very nervous about it, but hearing what he had to say about his persistence in the process and his educational experience meant a lot to me. I graduated high school with a 2.1 GPA. I spent most of my life living with my single mother. So hearing about his story and the fact that he was still able to achieve the type of success I'd like to one day meant a lot. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Chuck Nichols, followed by Aaron McGladry. And then online from there, we'll have Stacy Kaiser and Katie Neal.
Excellent. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hello, members of the board, President Bulger. I'm Chuck Nichols. I am the manufacturing teacher here at Lane Community College, and I'm here to report on some of the successes of our brand new CNC machining and inspection program. Recently, some of my students entered into probably the biggest machining competition in the nation. It's called Project MFG. It is actually sponsored by the Department of Defense. This year, they had the most schools ever enter into this competition. 80 different colleges entered into this competition. Only 16 advanced to the next round, and I'm here to report that our students have advanced to the next round of this competition. We are the only school in the state of Oregon to advance, and we're only one of two in the greater Northwest area to advance there. We will be doing the regional round next during spring break in Las Vegas. That'll be a lot of fun to take students there during that time. Nothing bad will happen there. But if we pass on from there, then we will go out to North Carolina for the semifinals and finals from there. That'll be a week-long competition near the end of the school year. And yeah, our students are pretty proud and excited of this. It's a brand new program, as you all remember from last year. This is our second term of this program. So all brand new students, all but one of them have already been hired out or are starting their own machine shops at this point. So the success rate of this program is already quite high. And this competition shows that they're putting in the work to really put Lane Community College on the map. Again, there's not a single other school in Oregon that is advanced onto this. So in 1 year, we've been able to do that work here. So I wanted to come here and present that to you so then you can understand what we're doing in this program here and hear the successes of our students. If you have any questions for me on that, I got 1 minute for you.
Yeah, traditionally we don't do questions during public comment. I apologize. And but yeah, no, thank you. This is a real high honor. We might want to have to invite those students over to a board meeting one of these times. So
Absolutely. They'd love to do that.
yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, President Bulger, board. I'm Erin McGladry. I'm faculty with Human Services and also a co-op coordinator for psychology, sociology, human services, and on-campus folks. And I'm here to thank you for your support for student services, meeting basic needs for students. Our program has one of the highest rates of poverty and a lot of valuable lived experience. And then our students are going out to be social workers in the community. So these are the very folks that receive services, whether it was food benefits or they were unhoused or they've lived a life of addiction. They're the folks going out there now with that knowledge and the skills from Lane to help. But many of them wouldn't get there without the basic needs of the food pantry, working on housing support that they get through career pathways and securing different sorts of things so they can even be in the classroom. And so I just want to thank you for those kinds of support. The Mental Health and Wellness Center has been in my classroom several times because of the high needs that students have around these things. And again, it wouldn't be possible for them to focus on their career if they are unhoused, if they are hungry, if they don't have the childcare that they need. So these support services, and I know some of them are just grant funded at this point, are incredibly valuable. And they help me as a faculty member focus on helping students, especially in career technical, build the skills they need to be successful. And I'm also happy on the co-op end to say all of our students that were in co-op for human services for spring placed either in the job in the co-op that they were in spring and were hired on with that site and are receiving benefits, maybe for the first time in their lives, paid days off, perhaps for the first time in their lives, that sort of thing. And the ones who didn't get hired with that agency were hired on with another agency that was very similar. So I'm proud of our graduates and also to say that they do come back and give. I've got some coming into class tomorrow to coach. So they go out, gain experience, and they really have a heart for Lane. So thank you for that support that enables them to change the trajectory of their families by turning an addiction into that friendly person who knows how to navigate through life with criminal backgrounds, with some breaks in their employment history, and with some things that are hard to talk about, and can really receive whatever challenges come their way because they've lived them. So thanks for that basic support. And I appreciate your work.
Thank you so much.
Stacy's here.
Good evening, colleagues. I'm Stacy Kaiser. I teach biology in the science department here at Lane. There was some confusion about online versus in person. Sorry about that. I don't have to tell you that we serve a particularly vulnerable population of people in our community. I have daily interactions with our students and a couple of decades of experience that I would like to share tonight. I took a surveyed my current students for some quick feedback. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, the average of 25 respondents was a 3.8 on feeling supported here at Lane, which I was happy to see. They reported feeling most support from the Center for Accessible Resources, CAR. Next came the TRIO STEM program, which supports first-generation low-income and students with disabilities. And the STEM Learning Zone was called out for support specific to science majors. The SHED help desk for students was also highlighted as something that really helped them in classes. Advising is the biggest concern for students. It obviously sets them on a path, and they report conflicting information can be frustrating. And they some of them also reported that in financial aid, this was also a concern that they had. Post-bac students report feeling a bit of limbo, and I see a fair number of these as they come back to get science credits to go into professional schools. And I think that's a population that we could get some more data and better serve there. When I asked for some demographic data for a project a couple of years ago, I found out that this was not a direct question that we asked students when they came to Lane, are you post-bac? And I think I encourage us to collect that data. Counseling positions have decreased over my tenure here at Lane, and there used to be a person in my building who was a trained counselor that I would be able to walk students to, and I actually used as well for work-related stresses. And through retirements, we don't have that person in our building anymore. As you've heard from previous speakers, this is a time of high anxiety in students, and having a face and a support system there is crucial for student success in my classes. I also see students for whom basic needs are not met. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, water, safety, tell us that in order for anyone to be present and learn, we need our basic skills met first. Lane's Food Pantry, as was already mentioned, helps fill in the nutrition gap, but student support is not helpful to have these types of resources in corners of the campus that are hard to get to and not well advertised. Support should be easy to see, easy to access, and free for these kind of students. All of this costs money. We serve a population of community members that are already accessing these public services. Reminding the public and our representatives that this is constantly might feel like nagging, but for those of us who see students every day, it is a daily issue of support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie Neal.
Hi there.
My coworker and fellow union member couldn't attend tonight, so she needed to bring greetings, Board of Education and President Bulger. Good evening. My name is Katie Neal. I work with Specialized Support Services, and I'm currently Officer at Large with LCCEF. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of classified professionals because despite our continued best efforts, we are not getting the respect that we deserve, and we haven't been able to finalize our contract. Respect is a living wage, one that adequately reflects the actual cost of living increases. Respect is benefits that actually benefit us. Respect is protection on the job and being treated as a valuable team member, not as temporary or disposable workers, which is how many of us feel. Consider this also. You fail your current students when you can't provide living wages to your current employees. Many past students of Lane are now beloved employees of Lane, having either found a place here while earning their degree or certificate, or perhaps returning after earning a higher degree. I'm one of those past students. I graduated from Lane with an AAOT and transferred to the U of O to complete my BS. I went into debt to get an education that I was told was necessary to earn a living wage. And now here I am, degree in debt in all, and I'm asking you to live up to your promise. Several buildings on campus have posters listing wages one can expect in Oregon based on education level. And I can tell you now, according to those posters, you are underpaying many of your employees. It's disheartening, degrading, dismaying, disappointing. I could go on because I like alliteration, but it almost seems like a scam. Do you just want to get the students money selling degrees that you say will earn us a living wage after we graduate, while knowing they won't? Because it really seems that way when you fail to represent that outcome of living wages in your own employment offerings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie Soriano Cervantes, followed by Beth Landy, and then online, Tammy Stark, then Mandy Pritchard.
Good evening, President Bolger and board members. My name is Leslie Soriano Cervantes, LCC career counselor and faculty member. The lifeblood of any college are the students it serves. Without students, none of us that work at Lane Community College would have gainful employment. One of my primary reasons for coming to work every day is to serve each student that I engage. So when I learned that my impending pink slip and dismissal for one of the things that I mourned was not being able to serve the students in a manner that they deserve, particularly the students who have been historically excluded from higher education, students of color. My expertise is working with the most marginalized student population. Students from this demographic profile seek me out because of that knowledge. One of the students that I served had major issues with immigration and custom enforcement. Without getting into specific details of the student's case, rest assured I was able to serve the student in a manner that offered the appropriate referrals and support to navigate a very complicated situation. Another student earlier last term came to me in crisis due to an issue of bias. The student was attempting to utilize public services and was targeted in part because of their ethnic and racial background. That student trusted me to refer them to their appropriate support areas within Eugene and our campus. Because of my own personal experiences and expertise from the fall to the winter term, the student is on the path of progression and completion. I take pride in being well-rounded and well-versed to serve each and every one of our students when I encounter them. I cannot tell you the satisfaction I get when students share with me their success stories. The student's success is my success, which in turn, it's Lane's success. In closing, I ask that the college continues to serve the students and support me and my colleagues who come to work to serve the students and the community. My skill set is Lane's skill set, and therefore, by proxy, gives the college credibility to stand by our education that we so proudly provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, LCC board and college leaders. I'm Beth Landy, faculty and student affairs. I'm retiring in May after 26 years of teaching and counseling in the areas of career development, college success, and first-year experience, as well as my current role in helping students apply for scholarships and find employment. Here are some parting thoughts. 1, I've been involved in developing 3 different first-year experience programs focused on college success strategies, career exploration, and academic planning. For each iteration, our outcome data showed that they positively impacted student success and retention metrics. However, each one was dismantled when federal grants ended and/or for political reasons and/or because a newly hired college leader had other ideas. First-year experience is a top best practice for retention, yet we currently don't have a program. Please prioritize and fund any future efforts. And if the next program proves to be successful, please don't allow it to be dismantled yet again. 2, for decades, Lane's retention counselors have been the college's career counselors, helping students get clear about themselves and their goals. After mid-March, there will be only 2 career counselors remaining to serve the entire campus, including prospective students who want clear goals before enrolling. Students drop out when they lack a career direction. Thus, career counseling must be a priority and a critical component of any new onboarding program. Please support this work and adequate funding for staffing. 3, once students are clear about their goals, they need comprehensive, accurate, and timely academic advising to understand program requirements and develop an academic plan. Our current academic advising team is woefully understaffed. Please support their work and efforts to increase staffing. 4, the Mental Health and Wellness Center is also woefully understaffed to serve the intensive, complex, and ever-expanding mental health needs of our students. Please support efforts to provide high-quality mental health counseling. Finally, in my current role, I work with advisor Tina Hunter in Scholarship and Employment Services. We have daily conversations with students, prospective students, and families about how they are paying for college. Here's what we know. First, many students are enrolling at Lane without a plan to pay for college. They are unaware of total college costs and do not have a budget to pay for college and living expenses. Because financial issues are a top reason that students drop out, along with personal and family issues, we need to help students with college financial planning before they enroll as part of onboarding. Second, many students continue to request help to complete the FAFSA and ORSA. Lane employs excellent financial aid advisors who can help with LCC financial aid questions and processes, but no staff anywhere that I know of on campus are trained and available to sit down with students to complete these financial aid applications. This is a huge gap in services and an obstacle to students' ability to fund their education. Please support efforts to meet these critical financial planning needs. Our students' lives are important to me, and they're the reason I have worked here for 26 years. Thank you for listening and for your work on behalf of Lane students.
Thank you.
Tammy Stark.
Good evening, board members and president and esteemed colleagues. I've worked here 18 years because I too love Lane previously as faculty and now as classified. And my classified colleagues have asked me to read the open letter to the Board of Education members. We, the members of Lane Community College Employees Federation and the community at large, urge the board to direct its administration to settle a fair contract. Classified professionals have borne the brunt of the last 6 years, including being designated essential workers during the pandemic, risking their lives and their family's safety to do the essential work of the college. As the lowest paid workers at LCC, we've also been impacted most deeply by historic levels of inflation, which has disproportionately affected the Eugene Springfield community. Whereas an administrator making well over a living wage might be able to eat out in the face of 8% inflation, some classified professionals are struggling to eat at all. We need the administration to prioritize the needs of classified professionals as much as they prioritize the needs of themselves and other employees of the college. Classified professionals' responsibilities range anywhere from processing applications and recruiting students, ensuring students can register, tutoring, financial aid, infrastructure, cleaning, protecting, supporting students as they make progress toward degrees, changing the locks, keeping computers and web infrastructure running smoothly, setting up and tearing down events, and so much more. Without the work of Lane's classified professionals, classes could not run in person or online, and no students would be attending those classes. We make ALCC function at every step in its mission. It's time we are compensated fairly for the foundational work that we do. LCCEF members have historically been extremely reasonable in our approach to bargaining, often taking benefits in lieu of pay raises when the college claims financial exigency, so much so that the value of our benefits to wages has risen above 65%. This year, we cannot afford to take this approach. We need actual cost of living adjustments that match inflation, and we need to retain the benefits that we have. LCC insists that we have to choose one or the other. We respectfully disagree. We understand the role at community college and the challenging funding environment in which we find ourselves. Throughout the last year, we've tried to keep our requests reasonable. We've asked for a cost of living adjustment that keeps pace with inflation, steps to recognize the increased productivity that comes with further experience, and we've asked for the ability to actually use our vacation to prevent burnout. We've tried to be forward-thinking and future-proof the contract, We are not asking for a lot, but what we are asking is that you ensure a much deserved fair contract that will also benefit students and the college for years to come. We, the undersigned, request the budget and compensation for classified professionals to improve working conditions. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you.
Liz Coleman. First Mandy Pritchard. And then Liz.
Good evening, Chair Folnegi, President Bolger, members of the board, and my esteemed colleagues in the room and online as well too. My name's Mandy Pritchard, and I am an Associate Dean at Lane Community College. However, tonight I am joining you as our Female Athletic Commissioner for the NWAC. I serve along in this role with Coach Sheely, who is at this moment in the gym. The 38th Annual National Girls and Women's Sports Day is being celebrated today. NGWSD inspires girls and women to play and be more active, recognizes our student athletes, champions, coaches, administrators, and lawmakers who are committed to providing equitable access for all girls and women. So as I said, Coach Sheely is busy in the gym. The Lady Titans are doing a fantastic job. Right now I'm monitoring the score, so giving everybody a quick update. We are up 57-45 in the third quarter against Umpqua, which is amazing because right now we are running in neck and neck for the Southern region, which is our conference under the NWAC. I also happen to live down in Roseburg, and so my neighbor is the coach of Umpqua, and I'm going to hopefully be really excited before the end of the night and being able to walk around the neighborhood. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. Our sports teams for our female athletes, of course, include basketball, cross country, soccer, track and field, and volleyball. If you are able to catch a game, both of our men's and women's basketball teams will be home again this Saturday playing against PCC. The women will kick off the Saturday games at 2 p.m. and the men at 4 p.m. So hope you have a fantastic evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Go Titans. Next speaker.
Okay, Liz Coleman, followed by Rachel Knighton and Paula Thani in person, and then Anna Scott virtual.
Good evening, and thank you for hearing me. I'd like to talk about the benefits of student services at Lane Community College for our students. My name's Liz Coleman, and I used to coordinate tutoring services for about 25 years, and then I retired and came back to teach basic computers for career pathways because I love the students who struggle the most. And according to a most recent report from Institutional Research, 73% of Lane students have at least one of the 4 categories that create barriers to success. So I just want to tell you about one of my students because Beth has already told you about all the services that we used to have that were so effective and documented. So I'm just going to tell you about a student I'll call Bob. He was in my college success class back in the day, and it was part of a learning community, Fast Lane Learning to Success, which was successful. And he came to us in his mid-20s. He had been in and out of foster care and then juvenile detention. Then he was incarcerated. He ended up getting involved in drugs and alcohol. And I don't know, but somehow he found AA and somehow he ended up at Lane and in my classroom. He didn't know how to listen to lectures or take notes or study, let alone take tests or submit an assignment on Moodle. What's that? So he had no confidence in his ability to learn. He actually, at the end of the term, we asked students to do a reflection about how they felt at the beginning of their term. This was his drawing. He felt frustrated. He felt angry. He felt insecure. He worked nights in a restaurant. He came in exhausted and he didn't know anything about the 2-to-1 rule that he has to do twice as much time on homework as he does in class. I was like, what? So he was terrified. He was fragile. He was exhausted. And sometimes he was suicidal. And the counselors that we hooked him up with were critical for his life, not to mention his success. So fortunately, we had all the services and he attended them all. So I'm not going to go into those because Beth did, but they were great and we documented it. So in the 4 years that it took Bob to complete LCC with an AOT, this is his final picture at the end of his first term with all of the success, all the student services that he had. He felt confident, he felt motivated, he felt accomplished and like he could do it. He felt secure. And he told me so many times that he would not have been able to do it without all of the student services. So yeah, he completed Lane. Then he went to U of O, got a bachelor's. And then last I heard, he was getting a job with Lane County to help troubled youth.
Excellent. Go ahead and finish
Hello.
your thought. Oh, sorry.
That's it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Rachel Knighton and Paula Thani. Good evening. My name is Rachel Knighton. I'm a faculty member here at LCC. I've been teaching Spanish since 2018, and I love the students here. It's the main reason I teach here. I'm here tonight to share a story about one of these students in order to illustrate the importance of providing basic needs supports to students. Last term, a student in one of my classes began the year with high hopes, and yet, as I'm going to explain, despite their best efforts, they ultimately did not successfully complete the class. The first sign of trouble emerged when the student's financial aid disbursement was less than they had expected. The student had misunderstood the pricing structure for full-time students. Although 12 credits is full-time, in order to earn a degree in 2 years, students must average 15 credits per term. The additional credits ate up the student's financial aid, and there was nothing left over to purchase the access code that the student needed for my course, an access code that cost $50 and had a grace period. So the student had been relying on the grace period to complete the work. When the grace period ran out, the student had assumed that the financial aid would kick in so they could purchase it. The student indicated that they would have the funds to purchase the code as soon as they got paid in a few days. These are common problems. 1, the student did not understand how much financial aid they would receive and how much would be dispersed to them. And 2, the student experienced a gap in their cash flow of a relatively small amount, but one that was enough to cause major stress and impede academic success. Less than a week later, we're now at about week 5 in the 10-week term, the student messaged me again. They'd been working to catch up on their missed work now that they'd been able to purchase that code because they'd been paid, when they began to experience problems with their computer. The LCC Student Help Desk has laptops and Chromebooks available for long-term loans to students. However, many students appear unaware of this service. This points to a significant challenge that many LCC students face, which is that information is disseminated in a highly fragmented and disorganized manner. Like many faculty, I try to compensate for this problem by listing resources on my syllabi, placing links in the commonly needed resources on my course Moodle pages. Of course, I also connect students via email. I talk to them. I put them on my lesson plans. I project them in class. However, none of these are particularly effective ways to share such vital institutional information. I want to pause for a moment and point out that at no time were the students' difficulties related to the course itself. The student wasn't struggling with the content of Spanish. All of the student struggles were related to issues outside of the class. The student was managing the course material. They were a little bit behind because they'd had a number of struggles, but they were generally keeping up.
Finish your thought.
And I'll finish Rachel's statement. I receive an email one morning. The student has missed the bus and now has to wait for the next one, which doesn't arrive for another hour. In spite of their optimistic message indicating that they'd be present, they never make it to class. In fact, the student never made it to class again, although they remained registered in the course, and we continued to email for several more weeks as they and I tried to connect them to resources on campus. You may be wondering why the student wasn't making it to class. Certainly I was, because that was a new and different problem. A few days after letting me know they'd be late, the student shared details of their situation. Due to circumstances beyond their control, their living situation had been disrupted, and now they were homeless. Of course, I immediately reached out to CARE at Lane and quickly received word from the student and staff in the CARE office that they had connected. Unfortunately, by then it was too late in the term for the student to recover from those missed weeks when their housing fell apart. The student dropped the class, which would have put them below full-time status and slowed down progress toward a degree. Additionally, the student would still need to repay the student loan, even though they hadn't earned any credits, joining the nearly 40% of people with student loan debt, but no degree. And I'll just interrupt and say that my brother was actually another of those people with student loan debt and no degree. So I relate to that point. It leaves a bitter feeling. Unless you think this student is an exception, survey data indicates that close to 40% of LCC students have experienced housing insecurity in the past year. I have heard from our own institutional leaders that when students don't successfully complete a course, that it reflects on faculty. I wish it were true that student success or failure could be attributed primarily to the efforts or lack thereof of just the faculty, but as this story illustrates, the truth is far more complex and students' needs extend beyond the walls of the classroom. In order to retain our students, we need to provide timely supports to interrupt the accumulation of obstacles that can prevent them from achieving their goals. Our students can do it, and it's up to us as an institution to create the environment that allows them to express their true talents and abilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Anna Scott.
Hello. I'm going to speak as the chair for College Council. And I just wanted to let you know that in your packet for our College Council report is also some strategies for budget that the Budget Development Subcommittee has provided. I wanted to let you know that this has not come before the College Council, and we're going to be looking into why that is. But since the co-chair came to me and asked that you receive this information, I have dutifully provided that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay. Winona Burks and Wendy Simmons.
Hello, my name is Winona Burks. I'm a faculty member in the nursing department. We need a bias incident procedure with a restorative justice model to address increasing complaints. Faculty from underrepresented groups have experienced increased retaliation from the administration. According to the most recent survey of all faculty, 80% indicate that addressing bias and discrimination on campus is a highest or high priority. Is the college sufficiently investigating concerns that have been communicated to them? There does not seem to be accountability in place. There are individuals that have felt they have no other choice but to resign from LCC because they have experienced a hostile workplace situation, often directly from their own managers. LCC has lost several employees of diverse backgrounds and underrepresented groups for this reason. As a member of the LCCEA Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee, I've heard their heartbreaking stories and exit interviews. It is critically important that administration at this campus recognize that retention of faculty from underrepresented groups requires investment, commitment, and leadership. LCC has not replaced the Equity and Inclusion Associate Vice President, who was the head of the Office of Equity and Inclusion. The college has not made a commitment to keep this vital department open and to provide regular, live, interactive training on bias discrimination and systems of oppression for all employees. If you Google bias incident procedure in COPS, the college's online policy and procedure system, it pulls up the bias incident response and then takes you to the bias incidents response webpage. It has the Office of Equity and Inclusion still listed, and it still has Greg Evans, our Associate Vice President, who is no longer here, as the primary contact. While the college has made a commitment to try to increase the enrollment of a diverse population of students and faculty of color, it is a known fact that we have issues with retention. There needs to be accountability of the administration to recognize and investigate issues of bias. An example of a restorative justice model is an approach that seeks to repair harm by providing an opportunity for those harmed to communicate about and address their needs in the aftermath, as well as hold accountable those who caused the harm and provide them with opportunities for growth when applicable. Outcomes then seek to repair the harm and reduce the likelihood of reoffense. This is summarized from the Law School of the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law.
And I'll finish your statement. We need accountability to enforce the system we have in place regarding creating a just campus. We need communication and transparency that is accessible to the campus, leadership, and the board. This step will help to discourage behaviors that are not supported by our policies and mission statement, and will assist those that are being targeted to speak up. Opening communication is healing and will give an opportunity for more education that can lead to positive outcomes. Sharing a bias incident report with the board as required by the bias incident policy and open investigations will discourage oppressors. The fact that behavior will be held accountable in itself would be a deterrent for future incidents and give assurance to those individuals that are fearing retaliation, discrimination, and bias. The restorative justice model can also be viewed through the lens of the 5 Rs. That is respect, relationship, responsibility, repair, and reintegration. Our ultimate goal in utilizing the restorative model is to restore, rebuild, and reconnect our community at Lane Community College. We need all members of our campus community to feel safe and supported. Thus, I'm strongly encouraging the board to replace Greg Evans' position and maintain our equity and inclusion office. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Denise Brinkman, followed by Ellen Osterkamp.
I had not planned to speak. I got co-opted. So I've talked to you a number of times recently, in the last few months. I've been here 25 years. And, you know, it's amazing to me the things that don't change and the things that change and then come back around like they were never here before. So I used to be a board leader and I was on the bargaining team for 10 years. So I've seen all these things before, all these explanations. They don't make any sense. I will say that the most dangerous part of the college's current proposal, and for months proposal, to the classified unit is the one where they want to take away the stop-loss language for health insurance in the contract. The classified unit was the last employee group to go to OEB MODA. And some years back, when we had Pacific Source, the college had said, we're no longer going to pay for health insurance increases. So whatever that increase is, when it comes around, you get to pay all of it. And that took me from $94 a paycheck to $200 a month to $212 a month. That is not sustainable. So they seduced the classified unit to go to OEB MODA by saying, we'll give you everything that we gave the faculty. And that included the stop loss language. If you don't know what that is, it is the language that says whatever the health insurance costs are, the college agrees to pick up this much of it, which is the lion's share. I'm not going to dispute that. But
anything else is us. So for 2 years, my paycheck deduction for health insurance was $0. It then went to $1.80 a month, and it's now up to $2.98 a month. Certainly nothing to complain about. But next year, it will increase again. It costs $1,800 and some dollars for the college to pay for health insurance for myself and my partner. Just a 3% increase of that is about $54. So next year, instead of $3 a month, I would be paying $57 a month. You can see how the year after that and the year after that, it gets ugly. So that's the issue if I were on the bargaining team that I would die on the Hill for. Because with medical inflation being 3 to 5 times % higher than normal inflation, even if the college were to magically give us inflation protected COLAs every year, which it won't happen, it cannot possibly compete with the medical insurance increase that's going to happen year after year. So that's the one thing that I want to protect my people from, because I'm gone. I'm retired in 689 days. It won't impact me, but it will impact them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Chair Fulnagi, President Bolger, and members of the board. My name is Ellen Osterkamp, and I serve as Dean of the Arts here at LCC. I stand here tonight to thank President Bolger and her team on behalf of my faculty, staff, and students for bringing renowned artist Titus Kaphar to LCC for the Martin Luther King Jr. event on January 11th. In what was a packed house of students, staff, and faculty that evening, we also had members of the community present, including the executive director of the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art at U of O, members of the City of Eugene Cultural Services, as well as representatives of the Lane Arts Council and the Arts and Business Alliance of Eugene. It has not gone unnoticed that President Bolger is an advocate for the arts, and this recent example has been by far, sorry, this is a little emotional for me, by far the most valued for our faculty, staff, and students. Titus is a featured artist in the Gagosian Gallery, winner of the MacArthur Fellowship, and featured in major museums from the Metropolitan in New York to the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. But what makes Titus stand out is his style of visual representation and his confrontation of Western classical styles of art and portrayal. He asks his viewers to consider the origins of art, how colonization has affected and continues to affect the creation of art, and how it manipulates the identity of the subject. He confronts the viewer with visual language that addresses political concerns of his own life story, as well as our own understanding of present turbulence. His work aligns with LCC values, particularly on developing an understanding of issues of difference, power, and privilege. As Dean of the Arts, it is important for me to say thank you. Thank you for supporting and advocating for an area of our college which strives for excellence every day, which works through difficult times together, and which supports students through critical thinking and expressive thoughts and actions. In the United States, the arts are typically the least funded and most overlooked, and yet every day we sit in our cars and listen to music on our way to work and school. We enter buildings of great heights and aesthetic qualities. We encounter murals and public sculptures, and we experience multimedia demonstrations through film and websites. And bringing in artists like Titus to our students, we are telling them that at LCC, we support the arts. We encourage students to think critically, to engage in difficult histories, and to question everything. We tell them that they matter and that their choices to pursue an education in the arts matter, as you heard from Giannis tonight. Work like bringing Titus to this campus, it did not happen in a vacuum, and I'd be remiss in not thanking the other people who were involved. Thank you to Colm Joyce and Bliss Newton for leading the work, to the Lane Foundation for their generous financial support, to Carl Ye, to Dr. Lawrence Rashid, the Black Student Union, the Lane Student Government Association. Additional thanks to Media Services, IT, the custodial team, Brent Ellison, Kevin Hagar, and Facilities, as well as Specialized Support Services. And finally, thank you to everyone who helped set up chairs, tables, and tablecloths. I appreciate your willingness to help. This was truly a collaborative and collegial effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Excellent. Thank you for everyone who spoke. We are moving on to the president's report. Dr. Bolger.
Yes, I begin my report this evening with appreciation to the Board of Education for your time and commitment to Lane Community College. I also want to welcome the new Budget Committee members. LCC appreciates your service. The college continues to be focused on its fiscal condition, enrollment growth, and institutional culture. During this budget development cycle, progress is taking place in several areas. You may recall that Interim Vice President of Finance and Operations, John Nisbet, has presented a comprehensive multi-year budget forecast and suggested categories for budget parameters. He has highlighted the challenges of increasing costs and maintaining attention on fiscal stewardship and sustainability. The Grow, Save, and Partner work groups will complete their work by the end of the month. 27 individuals college-wide are engaged in this endeavor. The virtual suggestion box has generated 150 suggestions to date, which align with the Grow, Save, and Partner themes of the work groups. The budget development process includes many voices, including classified professionals, faculty, students, and managers through departments, divisions, and the governance system. The enrollment picture in week 5 is favorable. Enrollment is up 8.2%, excluding College Now enrollments. Headcount is up 8.4%, and full-time equivalent is up 7.1% compared to last year. We are looking forward to attracting more students of all ages to strengthen enrollment and learning opportunities for the community. I am pleased to share that the Florence renovation is in the closeout phase, and the timing could not be better. I had an opportunity to be interviewed by KCST in Florence with Dean Russ Pearson and talk about the exciting partnerships with local K-12 school districts and career pathways and the Oregon State University Extension Service. New programs will be offered in the next academic year, including the bachelor's degree in applied business management. During the recent storm event, I saw a remarkable display of compassion in the community and on the main campus and centers. I received compliments from several employees for the daily communications, providing resources and support. I heard heroic stories of employees who helped one another remove trees and branches during an unprecedented event. A special thank you goes to Student Affairs for ensuring that the Student Food Pantry was open on Saturday and Sunday. Student Affairs and Finance ensured that students received financial aid refunds. This week, we are recognizing the groundskeepers and public safety teams for keeping us safe and restoring the campus. These are brilliant examples of LCC's culture of a caring community. We just returned from the National Legislative Summit of the Association of Community College Trustees. Trustee Zach Milholland and I attended a new trustee academy, a professional development session for new trustees. Several of the Oregon community colleges, consisting of board members, presidents, staff, and students, spent time with congressional leaders advocating for issues important to community college students, including Pell Grant eligibility for short-term programs, making Pell Grants tax-free, strengthening the role of community colleges in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and increasing access to SNAP benefits. In one general session, U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm gave a shout out to LCC for embracing green energy practices, and we were all very proud. While in Washington, D.C., we engaged in relationship building through a special tour of the NPR headquarters, of which KLCC is an important affiliate. As I wrap up my report, I want to recognize that this is Black History Month, and if I had known that it's the 38th annual Women's Sports Day, I would have included that in my report too. Several speakers will be on campus supported by Student Affairs. I am also pleased at the end of this report, which I won't read, to share highlights of my engagement activities with the college and the broader community in January. That's my report.
Thank you so much. And President Smith with the SGA report.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I have a report with a starting theme, exhaustion. Exhaustion from the ice storm and the crammed due dates and midterms and catching up on anything that we may have missed due to the ice storm. The inaccessibility to resources on campus and to classes due to the power being down and the Wi-Fi out. A lot of students have reported that they were dropped from classes because of their inability to respond to emails. And although the financial returns are helpful for that, there was no way to recover the classes in a timely manner. That is very unfortunate, and the SGA is looking into how students were impacted by the ice storm, both physically through their classes and emotionally, and see how we could help our students better prepare for a future incident. On the flip side of that, we had very exciting events that we were proud to financially support that and attend, which were the Martin Luther King Jr. Day event with the speaker Titus Kafar last term. And SGA is discussing possible student activities like a self-defense workshop and a culinary demonstration, as well as a future student outreach program with President Bolger, which will be Pizza with the Presidents. That's all for my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And for the future, I've had people address others regarding confusion to things I say in this report. If anyone is confused, please address me directly at president@my.lanecc.edu. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Moved and seconded. I'm just going to do a roll call vote just to have it for the record.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Fullnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
Excellent. The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to action items. The first one is going to be pretty quick. It's the Bond Oversight Committee appointments. We have one. Where did it say here? What's that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. The action item is the appointment of Kalina Beard to serve on the Bond Oversight Committee for a 3-year term. And we are still recruiting for members of the Bond Oversight Committee that have construction background and experience in that. And we are. Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a motion to appoint Colleen Beard to the Bond Oversight Committee.
Fantastic. Great. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or anything you'd like to bring up in regards to the motion, Lisa?
Yes, I would like to say that I've met Colleen through both the Eugene Chamber and through her work in Eugene 4J, and I think she will be a great addition to the Bond Oversight Committee.
Excellent. Mike, anything to add?
I've known Kalina for a long time and strongly endorse her appointment.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? No opposition, no abstention. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the Florence GM's GC contract closeout. Tom? They have you down for 5 minutes, but it's okay if you go longer.
Can I go long? Can I go short? First major bond construction project, we're completing the contract. I think Russ here might say that we have a lot of work to do, and I would not disagree with him, but we've really, we've invested a whole lot of money, and I think most of you have seen it. It's a major transformation for it. We're at the point to close out that construction contract. In the process, it's been, looking at this data, it's been over 2 years along this way. One of the things is we did hire an independent auditor to watch this contract. They did an early audit and found a few things that, we worked out. We did before this closeout. Part of why it's taken this long is we had them review it all again. We've come to this. We are now asking for $182,401.29 more to close this out. These are items that came up during constructions. There were contingencies that we utilized along the way, as well as just some extra work. One of the things with the workout in Florence, we found it easier to go under the general contractor to get some things done because of the nature of contracting out there or getting trades out there. So the other thing I'd like to say is that as I look through this, we had allocated $9.5 million to this project. If I look at this, I'm sorry, I'm over budget. I'm going to be at $9,507,269. So I am $7,270 over budget.
Awesome.
I'll try and do better with the next one. With that, I hope you can approve this contract amendment and look forward to continued work.
Any motion on that effect?
I move that we approve the
Sorry, go ahead.
the amendment as presented by Tom.
And I'll second. Sorry.
Excellent. It's moved and seconded. Mike, would you like to speak on your motion?
I think coming in that close to the budget line is top notch, and we knew that we were going to have to make adjustments when we started the process.
There may still be a few adjustments, but I just had to throw that out there for today.
Steve, would you like that?
No, nothing else to add.
Excellent. Lisa?
It's on a different topic if you want to go ahead and address the motion on the table first.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's on a different topic related to the Florence Center, different question related to the Florence Center.
Okay, understood. Any discussion on further discussion on the motion, though? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstention? Lisa, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just, Tom, we've discussed this many times. Every time you talk about the Florence Center, I'm just curious, have we been able to get any art projects in the works out there as part of the remodel? It looks beautiful, so that should be said many times over, but we early on in the bond process, we talked about trying to do some art projects out there, and I'm curious.
I might turn this one over to Ellen, who is, we are working on it as part of this, and perhaps Ellen can address what the art committee is doing.
So our faculty are developing art on campus, or we have an art on campus committee that's led by Lee Immonen, one of our faculty in the arts. And he's putting together the RFP, and we're going to be working with Russ, with Dean Pearson on putting that together for Florence so that we can specify the needs in Florence. And then we're also doing that for other bond projects. It's just taking a little bit of time because we need faculty to have the time to pull it all together, but we'll be including community in all of that.
Excellent. Steve?
Just kind of
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
follow-up question. Does a project like the one at Florence trigger the 1% for art requirement?
It did not, because our bond funds don't necessarily have it. The state seismic grant does not require that as part of it, which was part of the funding, although we did allocate some funds to it. Of the projects we have going on, just in a broader sense. The state capital grants, those $8 million that we have for health professions, that requires the 1% for art for it. So.
So we will see some art on campus as a result of the bond projects, but not specifically out at the Florence Center. And there's other means by which we're going to address that.
We are doing some out at Florence Center specifically, but we're doing some others on a broader. As we get to health professions, I'm hoping we get a fabulous, that is going to be probably one of the grander public art displays in the city, if not the area, if we do it right. So
That's a big
my
statement, Tom. When you just put yourself out there.
Excellent. Like to open up to Denise, our Florence representative. Denise?
Thank you. So sorry. Muted. Am I?
Oh, you're now muted.
Okay.
Now you're good.
good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Solid.
It does look very good at the Florence Center. I happen to go there a couple times a week. for a dance class and like to I saw a lot of people doing some finishing up things. I'm excited about the art possibility. I'm also a member of a cooperative, the only cooperative art gallery in Florence that has been in the community for 18 years. So I know that there'll be excitement and a lot of opportunity for participation in the art portion of it. And those of you who have been to Florence have seen a few murals around, as well as the seals that are in art in public places. So it's just another way to enhance. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that process goes, and certainly hope for something also on the campus, on the center, on the Florence Center.
Excellent. Any further questions or discussions? All right, seeing none. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right, moving on to discussion items. And since we moved one of the, are you okay if we do start with the budget parameters in the first discussion item? Excellent. Perfect. We will move to the discussion item now, budget parameters.
Yes, John, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. Good evening again, everybody. As you remember, in the January 4th meeting, we had an agenda item of budget parameters initial discussion. And the minutes from that reflected about 16 different suggestions and comments, 11 of which so far that we've either accomplished or incorporated into the budget scenarios and modeling that we're currently doing. Just remember what I had stated earlier about the budget calendar, that February and March are really our key budget development periods of time. April, we move into budget committee meetings through May, and then approval in June before we need to submit by July 15. Final step. So do we have a slide deck? Thanks, Sean. So as part of that, this was an opportunity to really just get before you as an update on the process for which we're going through that. And it's very preliminary and initial, as I stated earlier, just a sense of some of the work and thoughts that are going into that, taking a lot of the valuable feedback that you provided from January. Really, as we've thought about it, the parameters themselves, as we begin with revenue, are the state support, property taxes, and tuition. So with the state, we're in the second year, we're moving into the second year of the biennium. So we expect that to be even with this year. Property taxes reliably go up about 3% each year. So we're expecting that and modeling that within the budget forecast for next year. And tuition or enrollment revenue is a combination of rate and growth. So what, I can go by memory if you like. Okay.
It's not letting me share screen.
Share the presentations.
We have anyone else with the deck so you guys can see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have it here at least. We can
Yeah.
put it- some of
Yeah.
us can see it.
Yeah, because you just covered the revenue. We can move on to the expense
Okay.
side of things.
Yeah, good deal. So enrollment increases are projected at 5%.
Yep.
A discussion we've had with the leadership and within the cabinet, 5% is just student growth. And then on top of that would be the tuition increase proposal that we bring back in March for recommendation for that increase. On the expense side of things, how we're thinking of things, first of all, in salaries, we need to be mindful of current positioning against market, working with Shane and Human Resources on that. The compensation increases, what we've modeled within the budget scenarios that I shared in December, we're on the order of 3 to 4%. Position vacancies, these don't include every vacancy and turnover across the entire college, but rather this year, if you remember in the budget rebalancing packages, we had 1.6 million of positions that we put on hold as a one-time that we would presumably fill in the coming year. So those 1.6 million positions we're currently evaluating at the cabinet to determine which of those are essential to fill. And some of those have gone forward. We've repurposed funds for those, and others we're determining, okay, that's an essential position that we need to fill for compliance and for other reasons. So we're anticipating that that's on the order of 0 to 100%, something in between there that we're currently evaluating, as I mentioned. Deferred maintenance, heard your feedback on that. We know that there's major projects and other things that we need to attend to from a facilities and grounds perspective, as well as IT. We need to catch up on. So we'll include about 750,000 toward that in the budget. Enrollment investment is a placeholder that $200,000 would be an add to enrollment and marketing. This is to, of course, go after the enrollment growth. We have to support that, put money to it. Lane Forward, we discussed with the president adding 50,000 to that. And of course, the Fund 9 sub-fund catch-up that we've discussed previously. Up till this year, we've had about identified 3.1 million of sub-fund deficits, plus this year. So on the order of 3.7 to 3.8 million that we need to come up with a plan that either is corrected in this year or spans a couple of years according to the ending fund balance. So timing TBD.
Excellent. And would you like to have us ask questions during the presentation or at the end?
Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Any questions before we move on? Actually, just a brief question. In regards to Fund 9, is this going to be a transfer from a different fund, or is it? Yeah, it will be. Okay, gotcha. And obviously the timing of it to be determined, and that will be brought to the board for the official action. Thank you. Yep. All I got.
Okay. So
Steve?
oh, sorry.
Steve?
Sorry, would you go to the previous slide, Shane, or whoever's controlling that? I just wanted to check in quickly on the deferred maintenance. Just up till literally, I don't know, 30, 60 seconds ago, I thought deferred maintenance in my mind was more focused on physical infrastructure. And then I just now heard you say IT infrastructure. And so I'm just, my concern was that when we had, at least I think I was the one anyways, who had expressed some interest in beefing up the deferred maintenance budget. So I'm glad to see it reflected here. I guess I had a little concern that if we're bundling deferred maintenance and IT maintenance or whatever, the question is that going to be adequate?
You know, the plans themselves haven't been identified. We haven't reviewed thoroughly what those needs are. We do know that grounds and facilities needs a set of projects for the campus. IT also needs that, infrastructure improvements going forward. The 750,000 is a placeholder for adding to budget, but between the two, it could be all or another. But I think we'll come back with you and identify what that's for.
Excellent. Lisa, I see you here. Have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I was wondering a little bit about the enrollment increase. So you're saying it's projected at 5%. So is that the recommendation that you think we will be moving forward with? That is the goal, or what we will base the budget on is enrollment increases of 5%?
So what this discussion is a budget parameter. So what we're trying to include within the modeling of things, where we are very preliminarily in the budget development, is putting a number out there of 5% to see how that looks in terms of revenue generation to match expenses to that. So it is, I wouldn't put forward that is our recommended target just yet. It's just a number that we're using to help model the whole thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful because when I looked at this in the packet, that's what it looked like to me, is you're modeling things, and it was unclear to me what we were specifically making decisions on for parameters. So it's good to know you'll bring back a more specific enrollment parameter for the budget at a future date. I know that one of the things that we had discussed that several people mentioned in our previous discussion was scenarios. And I'm wondering if you can bring us scenarios with different enrollment levels, because the report that we just heard and what the goals we've been meeting have been 7% this year. And so I'm just wondering if we might see something more between 5 to 7% even.
Well, indeed, yes. 5% has been something that we've discussed internally. I think perhaps after sharing some of the way in which the financials are tied to some of these other elements on the next couple of slides, you could offer some feedback in terms of how many scenarios you'd like, because we have so many variables and how many scenarios would you like to review. So if you'd like to see on the order of 3 or 5 or 1, or you know what I mean? If you'd like to offer some context on that, that would be helpful too, because there's
Great.
many different variables that we can model and change.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, John.
Of course.
All right, perfect. Zach?
Thanks. On the revenue slide, the 1.25 million from increased revenue and tuition growth. Can you explain the how that was calculated? It appears like it's slightly low based on the 5% enrollment growth and 3% tuition increase, that it would be potentially higher than that.
Is that on page 3, Zach?
The revenue of 1.25 million FY25 enrollment rate plus rate and enrollment. What's the numbers there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I just hadn't gotten there yet, but we'll go forward. So on the revenue, speaking to that, so we know that state funding will be flat second year of the biennium. The 1.25 does represent a combination of rate and enrollment. This is just a placeholder. It's a rough swag for, given the enrollment projections that we put in place there and with whatever rate is approved, this is on the order of what we might anticipate for additional revenue and enrollment.
So I think our tuition currently is bringing in about 20 million a year and fees about 10 million per year for a total of about 30 million. So that would, 1 million in growth is only about 3%. Can you explain the discrepancy, what I'm missing?
Yeah, I think you're correct. It's about 3 million. It depends a little bit in enrollment on which programs, what fees are going to be applied to the students in those programs. We have differential fees, course fees, and other things. This is a very general parameter discussion, not necessarily the precision of the budget model.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering why our parameters are we seem to be thinking about an 8% with between the 5% enrollment and 3% to 4% increase, but we're only seeing a 3% projected here for our enrollment and tuition increase.
Well, so what I would suggest is in March, when we come back with actually in the end of February and in March, when we discuss more refinement of the budget, you'll see exactly how that's calculated. In other words, the elements that I include here were from a spreadsheet that were included perhaps a 3% rate and a 5% enrollment growth across all programs. It's about 1.25 million. But when we fine tune that, you're going to see exactly what's within the recommended enrollment budget.
Thanks. If you can send me the calculations that went into this number, I'd appreciate that. And I look forward to the more refined number in the future. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, really quick though, because it's a percentile and a numerical difference. Because so if you have a 5% increase and then you have 3% tuition on top of that, that essentially creates not necessarily an average or 8%. It would be oh my goodness, I'm sorry, math class. But essentially, yeah, it's a percentile and a numerical variable essentially, right?
Yeah, it's not, if you take the 30 million and you add 8%, that would be incorrect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So put it that way. Yeah, it's 3% on the rate.
Yeah.
5% on the enrollment numbers, credit hours.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. Denise?
Can you go back to slide 2, please? Thank you. And can you refresh, whoops, there it is. Can you refresh my knowledge on Lane Forward?
I would invite others if you want to speak specifically to that program.
Jane? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So Lane Forward is our innovation fund that Dr. Bulger has launched this year. My office is coordinating that, and really Amanda Blunt in my office is coordinating that process. What it's designed to do is provide seed money for projects that are crowdsourced from across campus. And I'll be presenting at next month's board meeting to give you an update. Really excited. We got over 20 different proposals from the campus community, and they're all designed to increase enrollment, to provide opportunities for professional development and growth for folks who participate, with an incentive to cut across silos. So we're giving incentive for people to work across campus and across silos to put these projects together. I cannot wait to share them with you. Really excited.
And currently, what is the investment in Lane Forward? Is that general fund monies? Is there a current budgeted amount?
It was 250. Was it reduced?
Yeah, it was 250. We ended up using part of it to fund the Motomatic investment that you've heard paying off for us. So the focus of it is really doing things that move the needle on enrollment. But yeah, that's the initial investment.
250.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, so we go to the next slide.
Oh, Lisa?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question about that. About the Lane Forward. So it's 50K more, so it would be 300K in the upcoming budget.
Correct.
Okay, so I was not interpreting that this way. I guess I thought we were looking at 50K. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, so that, so just to be clear, these are variances against this year to next year. So how much would change?
Understood.
Okay, so then the deferred maintenance, that's an additional 750K on top of how much?
I can't quote that off the top of my head, but yes, it would represent 750 in addition.
In addition, and so then the enrollment investment is also an additional amount.
Correct.
If I could just clarify here, I think with the deferred maintenance, that we removed that from the budget. I don't know if anyone's here is to talk about that. Jonathan, you would suggest that that's true, that what I'm saying is correct. And so we removed, it was about $700,000 or $750,000. So this is basically putting that back as an investment toward deferred maintenance. It's not $1.4 million. It's actually $750,000.
Thank you for the clarification. Denise?
So to this conversation of clarification, it seems that that's useful information to know if this is in addition to, and I'd like to have the sentence finished, in addition to an existing budgeted amount of, so we can see what it is. Because as was just clarified, the deferred maintenance doesn't sound like it's in addition to, it's a put back. So those kinds of points of clarification, I think, are very useful to us as we work our way through the budget.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of the discussion today is to give you a general sense of parameters and not necessarily precision of here is the specific dollar amount and how that changes from 24. So you're right. In the sense of 750,000, that's up above zero. Enrollment investment would be something X that exists today plus 200,000. So what we're trying to think about are what are the variances of growth and investments from this year into next year, and how might that be funded from growth in enrollment? So that's what these revenue variances represent. So we won't receive anything new in state funding. We would receive something new in enrollment. Property taxes would be a 3% growth, or around 750,000. We know that the employee retention tax credit, which is one time, we'll receive at some point, could be this year, but we're projecting that into the following year of 1.3 million, which we do know that amount. So roughly 3.3 million of revenue growth, which gives us a sense now we have approximately 3 and something million to work with. What might how does expense growth relate to that revenue growth? So that's a general sense. I know it doesn't offer the precision. That's because this is early February and we're not through the budget development just yet.
Understood. Lisa?
Yeah, so I was curious about the tax credit, employee retention tax credit, and that 1.3 million. It sounded like you aren't quite sure when it's going to come, but it'll be revenue in the fiscal year 25 budget. Is that correct?
Well, That's a good question, because if we receive it this year, it's from the federal government, of course. So timing is completely uncertain. Some schools have had issues with that. I've been with another institution that received it within 7 months or so of filing. So we're coming up on a time frame at which we could start to anticipate receiving that. It could be at the remainder of this fiscal, but as we move through budget development, the likelihood of that being represented in 25 increases. And so by the time March, April rolls around and we come back to you for a budget update and budget approval, it's more than likely going to be represented in FY25.
Okay, because we developed our fiscal year 24 revenue reserve based on, in a significant measure, based on the ERTC. And so I'm just wondering what the dynamic will be between the fiscal year 24 and the fiscal year 25, based on where the money may have been budgeted in the fiscal year 24. And so do you kind of see what I'm getting at? I'm trying to wrap my brain around the reserve and the relationship of when the ERTC comes in.
Yes. So it was budgeted initially to be received this year, and we had a reserve for revenue shortfall that included part of that reserve for revenue shortfall was $2 million of the ERTC. That initially had been identified as 2 million. Since then, I actually identified the number as 1.35, I believe. And so that was part of the budget rebalancing package and the whole discussion that we had in the fall, recognizing the fact we may not receive it this year. So it was made up in this year, and now it's still timing TBD. We're more than likely going to represent that as revenue next year.
So does that mean we will use the reserve to cover that money in the fiscal year 24 budget?
We have, yes.
Okay.
So that's behind us.
Okay. Thank you.
Zach?
Yeah, with regards to deferred maintenance, I really appreciate Jennifer Hayward sharing the previous documents on deferred maintenance with us and her offer to brief the board and give an update on the current deferred maintenance and the projections over the next 10 years. I looked at some of the materials before this meeting. It looks like we're spending about 6 million right now, and we really need to be spending 9 million a year just to tread water on that issue, taking the bond into account. Also, those two things together, we need 9 million also just to tread water. So I think it would be very valuable to take her up on that offer and invite her to a future meeting. Thank you.
Understood. What percentile of that is through the bond, the deferred maintenance? Because I believe, didn't we budget that?
Yeah, we need 18 million a year, and we're getting about 9 million a year from the bond.
Understood.
And 6 million a year from our budget. So we need, we got 15 and we need 18 just to tread water.
Understood. Thank you, Zach.
Okay, so moving on to expense variances. So as we think about the items, parameters that are going to change from this fiscal into next year, one of those, of course, 84% of expenses at the college are personnel. So if we think about 3% as a placeholder for what that might look like, that's about $1.7 million. With benefit cost increases at 1.5 as it relates to that 3% growth. Again, the position vacancies themselves are the one-time holds, $1.6 million. Reviewing that list, if a placeholder of 30% were filled into next year, that would be 480,000. It could look more like 2/3, but that's being evaluated right now, so that may grow. Again, the deferred maintenance, enrollment, investment, and lane forward are represented as variances or growth to expense base. And then the sub-fund catch-up. So if we have 3.8 million that we need to restore at the end of this fiscal year, do we split that into, do we take care of that all in 1 year? That's a question. Or do we split that over multiple years in order to maintain an ending fund balance? So that's something TBD as we work out the scenarios that we'll share with you in the upcoming meetings to say this is what we might recommend for that timing.
And board policy allows for 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Lisa?
It's my understanding there's no board policy for Fund 9. We only have a board policy for the ending fund balance. So we don't have a board policy on Fund 9.
Good clarification. Yes.
And so I do have a question about that, if we can maybe just go back to that slide. So I believe I said this in the last meeting, but I am not supportive of doing it all at once. I would like to see it spread out over a minimum of 3 years or even longer. And so can you tell me what that 0.75 is? Is that a 3-year time period, or is it a longer or shorter time period?
Thank you. Yes, that's a 2-year time frame. So at the end of this year, we would anticipate what the ending fund balance was and is based on the performance of this fiscal year. And we would restore as much as possible into the sub-fund deficits and then determine what that difference is to then push into 25. So that's what these represent, are about $1 million of remaining deficit to push into 25. But I heard your feedback too. We'll look at multi-year plans as well, just in terms of financial modeling.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Zach?
Following up on that, can you, what are the negative consequences of, potentially stretching this out? My understanding is that these funds are restricted, so, we really do need to move these funds back at some point. What are the negative consequences of not refilling immediately?
I think two. One is it's not a good practice. But second is the fact that the deficits will continue to grow, and at some point they'll overtake the total net balance in Fund 9. So the entire fund will eventually look like a deficit. Currently, it's on the order of $2 to $3 million, if I remember, when you roll up all of Fund 9 in terms of the surplus. So it looks like a $3 million surplus as a whole. But when you look at specific sub-funds, some of those have a surplus, some of those have a deficit. So with those deficits, you want to at least restore them to zero. It's good practice because each year you're using resources in some of those programs. And so you want to restore that so that you don't build up deficits into the future and have to fix an even bigger issue.
So taking a 3 to 5 year time frame would not hurt services in the near term?
It would not. It would just kick the can a little bit, in a sense, as to how that looks. So we would have deficits within those programs for a longer period of time that we would need to manage.
All right. Any other questions on this slide? Nope.
So the ending message there is we've got expense growth currently that supersedes revenue growth. We have identified what that deficit is there, which will continue to move around quite a bit. But again, it's early in the budget process, but things that we need to work on and be good stewards of. Just a reminder on financial reserves. So I spoke a little bit earlier about reserve for revenue shortfall. $3.8 million was what we identified for this year, and we've talked quite a bit about. That's essentially a cushion to mitigate enrollment revenue risk as we continue to grow. Does it need to be 3.8 million? Because 2 million again of that was for the employee retention tax credit. So could we reduce that at some point? It's a good thing, a good practice to have in place to again mitigate that enrollment revenue risk because we are in a growth state. But that's a TBD as well as the amount. The ending fund balance, of course, board policy requires the 10% or plan to attain that within a period of time. FY23, we'd initially projected at 8.82, which is 10.4%. We're currently undergoing the audit. So we've got another few weeks of that. So that could move around a fair amount. And then our operating contingency. So policy indicates we've got 1% and a 0.5%. So total 1.5% in policy that we need to set aside within the operating budget, which represents about $2.5 million for unexpected expenditure. Things break. Bad things happen throughout the year, and unexpected occurrences happen. So that's a good cushion to have and policy guided as well. So those are just 3 different buckets of things that we have in reserve. Good practice. So that's just a reminder there.
Excellent. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for your comments on the RRS, the reserve, because, you know, when I think about how much that was built on the tax credit, it seemed to me like 3.8 million for going into next year would be quite a lot, since we won't have that. And so I'd like to see the reserve reflect more what, you know, what we will need based primarily just on enrollment, because it seems like we know what we're getting from the state. Previously, it was based on not knowing what we were getting from the state, you know, meeting enrollment targets and the tax credit. So there's not the tax credit situation again. And being the second year of the biennium, we know what we'll get from the state. So it should be more of a cushion for enrollment for not meeting those goals. So I'm you know, hoping that it'll be lower, but, you know, would want to see scenarios on those too. And then I guess I wanted to ask about the ending fund balance. It's great to see that it's at 10.4%. But if I think back to last fall, where there was that community concern that we were going over a financial cliff because we didn't have the appropriate ending fund balances, I'm just wondering, what was the concern based on? Was there some miscalculation of what our actual ending fund balance was? I'm just wondering, looking at 10.4%, why were we hearing that there was a concern that we wouldn't have ending fund balances?
You know, from my perspective, I can't add much to that because I wasn't here. I do think there was some uncertainty just because we didn't know what those numbers were and there was turnover in the budget office.
Okay. All right.
Steve and then Zach.
Yeah, just to add to that, Lisa, my recollection is that largely what John said, that there was just significant uncertainty coming from the budget office to the point that we just plainly didn't have confidence on what the number was. And so there was hey, we just do not know. And it might be, everything might be fine, or there might be a serious problem. We should, you know, be conservative until we, with our resources, until we have a better understanding. That was my understanding at the time of the issue. I just wanted to give a little additional feedback. I agreed with Lisa's kind of analysis there on the the reserve for revenue shortfall going forward, that, you know, we set it at 3.8 this last time, and I can see reasons why we would feel comfortable reducing that in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Zach?
Can you go back to slide 4, please? So if nothing changes significantly from these numbers, it looks like we're looking at having potential expense reductions of 2.2 to 2.7 million. Has there been much thought to where those expense reductions might actually come from?
Yeah, I have some ideas, but I wouldn't speculate here.
Thank you.
All right. We're a couple minutes over time here. Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I have a question about the operating contingency. If we don't spend what is left in the contingency, then where does that money go to? Do we then bounce it over to fiscal year 25 from fiscal year 24? Does it go into the ending fund balance? Is that a decision you bring to the board? And I had one more thing I wanted to address in terms of feedback, but maybe I could have the answer to that question first.
It does. It rolls into, so hypothetically, if we had 2.5 million in contingency and didn't spend a dime of it, that would roll into the ending fund balance for the next fiscal year.
So, okay, and to spend anything out of the contingency, it has to be, it's a board decision. Could the board also decide to not roll it into the ending fund balance and then to apply it to fiscal year 25?
So the board approves transfers, much like we did, I think, in November, maybe early December. So we do bring a set of those periodically, so that you're able to see what those items have been throughout the year.
Okay, and last thing, I promise, I would like to say in relation to slide 4, that building a budget on a $2.2 to $2.7 million expense reduction, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And so, when I know we're not going to get a lot of traction out of the revenue side of it, but so that means we need to get traction out of some of these expense sides of it. And so I would really hope that, one, we can try to reduce that number, perhaps even significantly. And two, I would really like to have additional information on the question that Zach asked about what is the thinking around those expense reductions. And going back to Lane Forward, I would just like to remind us all, and some people were not on this board in the last budget cycle, but that $250,000 came out of the M&S fund to create the Lane Forward. And in our last meeting around the parameters where we had feedback discussion, one of the things that you talked about, John, was making sure that, we are doing some investment in M&S. And, I'm not seeing anything here. M&S took a serious hit last budget cycle, and it's really down. People like to say down to the bones. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's beyond that. I don't know what's beyond that, but so, I have concerns about that range of expense reductions and how that will be done, and think that some of these expenses may not be achievable.
All right, just really quick before we continue, is the board okay with adding 5 more minutes to this agenda item? I'm seeing, yep, great, thank you. We will go Denise and then Steve. Denise?
Thank you. Following a little bit up on Lisa's point, and also what has been discussed and asked about various scenarios. There are a lot of suggestions in the in the 20 pages of input from our community, campus community, that include ideas for revenue. And so the scenarios don't really, right now, we're not, there, I don't see a category or a way to express what might be possible, what ideas might be possible to increase revenue. What I mean by that is, people talk about charging for the facilities use. There's a lot of questions about property that the college owns and its potential uses or sale, hosting and charging for various types of camps. So there's a lot of ideas and suggestions out there under the category of revenue. And so it seems like some of those, there ought to be an amount that could be projected for where some additional revenue could come in. Whether it's charging for the, not just, tuition increase in that, everything from naming buildings, selling naming building. There are a lot of suggestions in those 20 pages, and a good third of them, I believe, is fair to say, fall under revenue increase. Yeah, ways to increase funding.
I would agree. There's a lot of great suggestions in those. In fact, the Grow Safe partner groups have done a great job of reviewing much of that feedback and categorizing it into thematic areas. I think to your point about including it as a specific revenue line, I think that might be possible. The dollars of that reflected might be fairly low, only because we might be projecting adding revenue for something brand new, and the timeline of that could be short. But I think long-term that has potential for sure.
Excellent. Steve?
Yep, just a couple follow-ons. There was some discussion earlier about restoring the Fund 9 and the sort of the period of time which, that might make sense. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit. I guess I think I agree with several colleagues that the idea of trying to do it all in 1 year might feel like a heavy lift, especially given that we're already a couple million shy, in gross terms. And so I agree. Not doing it over 1 year. And I guess for me, I'm also feeling like beyond 3 seems like too much. So I just want to be out there saying somewhere between 1 and 3 to try and restore that feels about right to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. I wanted to check in to see if you got a good enough amount of feedback from the board with what you've heard today. Fantastic.
I did. I wonder if you could comment on the number of scenarios that you feel would be appropriate to review for budget development.
I know in the past we've had 3 different scenarios. And that was really helpful. I'm thinking that would be I'm seeing a couple of threes. Excellent.
Okay.
Yep.
That helps.
3 scenarios would probably be the most ideal. And I think a part of it was there was like different numbers because there's obviously multiple variables, right? But it include tuition, enrollment, so on and so forth. Zach.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm just very interested in getting a better sense of what the trade-offs are between these investments and potential cuts. And without knowing what those potential cuts are, I'm having a very hard time weighing the trade-offs. And so if we could have one of those options be a no cuts option at one end of the spectrum, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. Steve?
So I had one other thing to say, and I forgot it when it was my turn a moment ago. There's been also a handful of comments about Lane Forward, right? And it's some 250,000 now. There's an interest in increasing it to 300 next year. Shane said that he's going to make a presentation next month about what we're seeing coming forward from that. So I get that times are tough, and you're telling us that we might have to cut some $2 million or whatever it is from the budget. So I get all of that. And that's an obvious place to look, because those are the kinds of places that we look, right? We look at deferred maintenance, we look at M&S, and I can imagine, let's look at this thing. It doesn't hurt anybody if it's not available. I get all of that. And we're trying to, bootstrap ourselves out of the, situation that we're in. We're trying to, entice faculty to, think creatively, work with us, be innovative. So I guess I'm just encouraging myself, but also other board members to withhold judgment about that, at least until we hear from Shane next month as to what we might see coming forward. It's at the end of the day, it's not a significant amount. It's we got to look everywhere, of course, but I just would encourage folks to keep an open mind. Let's see what we get from all that.
Okay. Denise?
So thank you I'm back to the suggestions that have been given. And thank you for, I think I heard you say that they were categorized under different topics. Would you be willing to put together what might be some of the strongest, I know that's kind of a subjective term, or maybe most often suggested ways to achieve additional revenue? I understand these could and would be new things, but there are also probably some comparables out there. And so some projections could be made. And it seems like that would be useful.
Yeah, thank you. The Grow Save partner groups have reviewed those. I spent some time yesterday with a great group reviewing those in the Save committee or group. And so, yes, much of that feedback had been agreed previously to share the Grow Save partner outcomes of those. The group that I was in and my colleague Brent here, we had reviewed much of that feedback and had it categorized by one of the committee members to thematic areas. So there was a lot of the feedback that was consistent with one another. So indeed, you'll see some of that.
Excellent. I'll just keep my comment really brief here. I'm also really curious. We mentioned this last time in regards to the fees and the fee structures and reevaluating those. But altogether though, I see a lot of our feedback from the previous meeting in this. And I want to thank you for that. And my mom, ever since I've been on this board, always said, hey, why don't we name these buildings and charge people for it? And if I ever have the money, I'll definitely put my mom's name on one of these buildings. Anyway, closing out this conversation though, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
And moving on to the next topic here, which is the LCC Alumni Network. President Bolt?
Yes, I'd like to have Wendy Jett and then also Katie Gatlin come to the podium and talk about the LCC Alumni Network. You might recall that when I first arrived, there was really some interest from the board in an alumni an association or something like that. And so we worked together with the foundation and here it is. And so we want to give you this presentation, this information about this alumni network. We're incredibly excited about this partnership with the foundation.
Thank you for your patience too, by the way.
Everybody. Oh, well, thanks. I'm going to turn over the time to Katie, our wonderful Alumni Relations and Annual Gifts Officer. That was actually a change in her title to officially incorporate her work with alumni relations. So I'm really glad that we institutionalized that. And she's going to tell you all the great things that have been happening. So thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, having us talk about this. Well, she kind of stole my opening line a little bit, but I'm really excited to give you an alumni update. And the first thing is Alumni Relations and Annual Gifts Officer is a change in title. And one of the things that I've just wanted to make really clear is we've been really intentional about making sure that my annual gifts work is kept separate from the alumni network, because one of the things that's great in development is when I call and ask somebody to coffee, they know at some point I'm probably going to ask them for money too. And I don't want people to say, oh, the lady from the foundation's calling to talk alumni, right? Like, I really want people to know that we're wanting to build this up. And if people want to give in a different way, however, what they want to give is great, but we are just being very intentional about keeping those two things separate so they don't get conflated. We had a busy fall. It was busy and it was fantastic. And one of the first things we did when we were talking about alumni is we pivoted away from alumni association and we called it an alumni network. And we felt like this was more accessible and inclusive and maybe more people would feel a little more connected with it. And so it's really focused on networking students, alumni, local businesses, which just has a different vibe than kind of what you might think of as your traditional kind of four-year alumni association, which just really doesn't fit the community college model, which we see a lot. And our tagline or what we say and truly mean is if you've taken a class at Lane, you are an alum. So one of the things we have is some people, they've gone to Lane, but they don't want to call themselves an alumni. Like they didn't walk across, the graduation stage or something. And so it's helping expand that definition to say, no, you are, and you're a part of our network and we want you to be there. We had the DMC, which are Design and Media Center, which our Lane students create. I'm pointing. Gave me the power and I we have
There we go.
a logo. So we were very, very excited. It was fun to work with the students. So we've created a logo. So now we feel officially official. And that's been really exciting. So Once we got the logo, we've updated the website. Now, if you go to it, lanecc.edu/alumni. It's very bare bones at the minute. It's very much like, this is exciting. Stay tuned for more. But we wanted to make sure that all of that was set because we were able to take a couple of opportunities in the fall to do a soft launch. So at our big gala, the celebration, and then again at the Eugene Chambers Economic Summit, we took the opportunity to share that we are launching this alumni network. And we did that by playing this video.
Hi, my name is Vivian. Hi, my name is Vivian Hera, and I am currently a general studies major at Lane Community College. I'm a future Lane alum.
Hi, my name is Darian Green. I'm an AAOT journalism major. I guess I'm gonna be a future LCC alumni.
Hi, I'm Valerie Bond, and I'm a dental hygienist, and I'm part of the Lane Alumni Network.
My name is Jessica, and I'm a Lane alum and a member of the LCC Alumni Network.
Hey everybody, hi. My name's Kevin Altucker, and I'm part of the Lane Alumni Network.
I am excited to announce the launch of the LCC Alumni Network. What that means is that if you take one class from Lane, you're an alum. We will keep you informed about ways to upskill and reskill throughout your work and life. We'll offer fun ways to stay connected too. Learn more at lanecc.edu/alumni. Go Titans!
Can I have your autograph?
Yeah, we'll want that. Okay, so if you can go to the next slide for me. I just wanted to first recap our to-done. To-done, get it? We all have enough to-do lists. We need more to-done lists, so I'm a big fan. So we changed the name to be a little more inclusive. We got our logo, we did some soft launches, and we created our alumni network ambassadors, who you just saw on the video. So if we can go to the next slide. So the alumni network ambassadors is something I wanted to share because it really kind of encompasses, the marketing and engagement thing that we're doing, but it really tries to encompass that network, that connecting of people. So as you saw in the video, your very own Kevin Altucker is one of our alumni network ambassadors this year. I started off with a small cohort of people who I know and have worked with for a long time so that we could give this first year a go and smooth out the wrinkles and get honest feedback from them about what could you be doing? What do you like? What would be helpful, so that we can keep this going? So it's based off of our student ambassador model, which the couple of students at the start of the video are from our student ambassadors for this year. Many of you have probably met them at one of our events, or if we come here to speak, I usually bring one of them along. So each year we choose a diverse group of scholarship recipients from programs all across campus. And then throughout the year, we use their stories, photos, videos for marketing, to connect with donors, to encourage other students to apply for scholarships, etc. And so we wanted to do that with Alumni Network as well, and have a cohort each year from different people across our community who went to Lane, live in Lane, love Lane, etc. And so we'll use their stories, their Lane stories, what they're doing now, photos, videos to share their work, what they do in the community, and why Lane is important to them. It's good to engage peer-to-peer because we all love seeing somebody being like, I know them, or I didn't know they went to Lane, or something like that. And then also engaging employers. So right now we're doing our photo shoots to use for marketing, and we are engaging employers for that. So Valerie, the dental hygienist, we're going to go into Dr. Rita's office and get a picture of her doing some stuff in there. We're going to get an office picture. There are a ton of folks at her office that have gone through Lane. And so being able to take those photos, we can use them for marketing, but also they can use them for marketing, and they can say we're a part of the alumni network, both as a business, but also because we hire a lot of Lane alums. Small cohort, as I said, but we will renew them annually, just like we do with the foundation ambassadors. Next slide. Perfect. You've been dying to know, what are the benefits of being in the alumni network? So we have put a lot of thought into this. And again, we're we're kind of starting small because we really want to make sure that we're offering quality things and building them out as we go. So we did a survey a few years ago now, and one of the biggest things that Lane alums want to see is help with professional development. That was the number one thing. And so we really want that to be a part of the network. We want to be able to connect you with employers. We want to be able, if you're an employer, to connect you with students and the workforce and build that up. One of the things we are working with Workforce to implement Handshake, which if you don't know what that is, it's an employment search platform specifically for college students. And this is cheesy, but I promise you'll remember it, which is why it works. But it's really like a handshake into your new career, right? So it's positions that are for students who are going through getting their education now and will be going into a specific career path. And so they have an alumni component of that, which we're really excited to be able to offer that to folks in our Lane alumni network. Let's see. Connecting the other, as far as professional development, I mentioned this a little bit, but just making sure that we have that kind of place where we can offer people connections. So connection back to the college. Do you want to come learn a new skill? Do you want to come mentor a current student? Do you want to give back and volunteer to the program? We want them to connect with each other. Did you go to school with people that you wish you would have stayed connected with employers, and then again with current Lane students, which I've mentioned. So the network in the name is incredibly intentional, and we really, really want to make sure that that is a benefit that people feel when they are part of the alumni network. So the other benefits are discounts. We will be building these out, but we currently have, Columbia is giving our alumni a discount. Thanks to Brett. I know he's not here, but he has been working on this for quite a while. And finally this year it came through. So just little perks like that people can pull up and get excited about. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, ooh, are we doing reunions? And we would love for people to do that. We aren't going to be doing that because it's a lot. We have a lot of programs. But we had last summer, our aviation alumni did a reunion, and it was wonderful, but it was very grassroots, and it was folks who had gone through the program. And so they knew what folks would like. They knew to have it at a little airport where people could fly in. I wouldn't have thought of that. Had a barbecue, really had this lovely get together. And then we worked with them more on like, can we invite current students out there? Like, how can we really facilitate those connections? And so what we want to do with the alumni network is really be able to provide people a roadmap and say, here are things to consider when you want to do a reunion. You know your group better than anybody. And so what's going to make the most sense? What are people going to enjoy? Who do you want to include? And so really support in that way of saying like, yes, we want you all to get together, and here are some ideas. Here's how we can support. Here's how we can engage current students in that. Because cookie cutter isn't fun for everybody. And then I have mentorship with current LCC students. This was something when we did the 5-year plan that was a little bit further out there than not. However, I was talking with Live Alumni, which is a database that we currently own and use. And they were saying that mentorship has kind of had an uptick. And so there are some new modules coming out. And so that might be moved up a little sooner than originally planned, which would be really, really fun to do. So the benefits, again, just connecting and making you feel like you're part of this community, you're part of Lane still. And if you went here, you're a Lane alum. We'll go to the next one. I've got one more.
Really brief question though. And so you're working with Workforce Lane for the handshake access and to pay for that essentially,
With
or?
LCC's Workforce.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Because there might be some partnership opportunities with Workforce Lane or the Workforce Board.
Absolutely.
And there might be some opportunities to partner with that because they have a handshake account. And yeah, exactly. And there's opportunities, I think, just to because it is unfortunately expensive to get into that, to use that program and to utilize the alumni services of it. So I would just recommend some partnerships in that. But yeah. Mhm.
And again, I think that's one of the really fun parts of this is getting to see what's already being done and can we be a part of that, but also can you, like, are we offering something that would be a benefit to what you're doing already too?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's been really fun. So we got a grant to implement that this year, and
Fantastic.
so should be launched the end of March.
Fantastic.
So we have some more updates for you.
And on the logistics and database side, I know a lot of our students transferred to U of O. Is there kind of like feedback between our two institutions to be like, oh, this is our alumni, but this is also your alumni type of thing? Like,
Oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. I thought my brain was still on the handshake trajectory.
Oh,
So
sorry.
You can keep that going, but we haven't gotten to that part yet, but I think that's really important.
yeah, so
You know, and I use myself as an example, you know, I've got my K-State sticker on my car. If I'm home, I'll go to a tailgate. I'll do all that stuff. That's not really, I don't think of, you know, I also went to Fort Scott Community College, but I don't think of that as my like alma mater in the same way. So I think being able to package it like that with any of the universities that are pseudo local, not to exclude some people up the road, yes, to help bridge that. I think that's a fantastic idea to just, this is your whole package.
excellent. Thank you.
Speaking of databases, as you mentioned, this has been an interesting endeavor. So we do have Live Alumni, which uses public data. So it pulls from LinkedIn, which is really fascinating. So I can, if I'm meeting with a business, I can go into Live Alumni, I can type their business in, and it pulls up a list of Lane alums that work there. The data is a little skewed because it is LinkedIn data. So is that kept up to date? Some industries use it more than others. That's been really lovely, but we can't hold records in there. It's just the public information. So it's been really neat to get info, and it's something where we can use to reach out to people. But as far as keeping touch of alumni and when they went to Lane, what they did at Lane, and particularly their emails. Emails are rough to stay on top of, particularly if they're student Lane now, making sure that we have their non-lanecc.edu email. Or I was looking at a list of alumni from a while ago and just looking down, I saw a couple of people I know, and I was like, oh, they're not at that job anymore, and therefore their email isn't the same anymore. So figuring out a database where we can hold the records, and kind of jumping down, but how alumni can update that. And if there's a way that they can do that easily so that we can stay in contact with them and hopefully be something front of mind so that they remember to update us when they make a move like that. So have a meeting on Friday with Salesforce. The college also uses something called Navigate 360. I'm looking into that as well, just to see where we can hub, because right now it's all Google Doc, which is fine. And I'd love to have something that could do a little bit more. And then finally, how are we going to identify our Lane alumni network, folks? If you're going to go to Columbia, or you're going to go, do whatever, and you need to show that you're an alumni, part of the alumni network, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be an actual card? Is it something that can go in your Google Wallet or whatever that is? I'm not cool enough to know, but a lot of other people do. So next steps are really diving into the logistics, and then finalizing the initial benefits that are going to come, obviously with more to come later. But one of the things that's really important for us when launching is we want to make sure that our processes are smooth and we know what we're offering people and we're able to deliver, because what we don't want to do is have people be like, alumni network, put in their email, right? We get it. And then they just hear crickets, right? Or it's just not, it kind of just fades away. That's not what we want. This is fun, exciting, and there are too many opportunities for that to happen. So we really want to make sure that that is solid. And we will obviously grow and refine as we go, but we want to make sure the start is a really good one. So our soft launches were just like, this is coming, isn't that fun? And so we'll do a formal launch in the spring once all the pieces are in place. I want to give a shout out. College marketing has been fantastic. Kyle and Claire have been really great with what pieces we might need, the website, what we can do with the college, et cetera. So we'll be doing a big push when that happens. A question I get a lot is, it's going to be an opt-in alumni network at this point. So we want, especially as we're figuring it out, we want people who are engaged and excited to be in there and testing stuff out and giving us feedback. So people will sign up to be a part of the network. We do have an existing list, as I said from before, when we hit the college, had done some alumni work. Our guests at the celebration, when they got their ticket or submitted their guest list, there was a button that said, are you a Lane alum? And if they check that, they are on my list. And obviously we're going to do a big push for current students too, because one of the biggest things is when they get in the door, like planting that seed of like, you're a Lane alum now and you're going to be a Lane alum forever. And here's how we want to keep you engaged and planting that seed to start. So we'll do a push at graduation at the end of spring term, and then also just doing some stuff at Welcome Week and just, again, planting that seed for folks. So we have a lot of to-dones, lots of to-dos, but it's rolling right along, and I'm really excited to give you an official launch this spring. So I don't want to over deliver, but I think I maybe got you back some time on your agenda. If nobody has any questions.
Any questions from the board? All right. So
Mostly just kudos. This sounds great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
And we have a question from Lisa. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for all the work on this. It's very exciting, and sign me up. I'm a Lane alum.
Perfect. We'll get you on there.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
One thing I just want to state is that in regards to the benefits and especially the discounts and stuff, we have a small business development center. A lot of those are technically Lane alum because it's going through the Small Business Development Center. If any of those businesses can provide discounts to alumni, that's a great area. I know many of them. Well, one of them is they make chocolate, so I'm totally on board with that. But I also want to challenge my fellow board members as you reach out. We have business connections throughout, and we should start asking them, would they like to be a part of the network and provide discounts of some kind to our alumni? So yeah, and I just want to encourage that participation from the board as well.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Denise.
Yeah, I think to do the discounts and everything and you know, make that connectivity, it sort of implies that you have some kind of card, right? Some kind of ID, so to say, card, so that the business, there's a good communication, right, with the business. I think that was on your list of projects, so to say, but that's kind of fun. You know, you have your little alumni ID card or whatever you call it.
So.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And once again, thanks for your patience as well.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Quarterly financial update. Should we wait for?
Well,
Yep.
John, I believe, is close by.
Excellent.
And
Hello, John. Quarterly report.
I'll turn it over to John for that. Yes, you are.
Okay, well, I want to introduce Jonathan Campbell. He is the Director of Budget Resources for Lane. Been with us for what, 2 months, 3 months, going on 3 months? 2 months. 2 months. Brilliant. Doing a fantastic job. So I want to invite him to review the year-to-date financials. Excellent.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm sorry to have to follow up such an exciting topic with numbers and year-to-date actuals, but I'm excited about it. So while we pull up the presentation, I've been here 2 months, and I just want to say that I've had so many great conversations with some of the our budget partners across campus. They have been very welcoming, excited to talk about budgets. I'm hoping to take the momentum we have and continue to rebuild the partnerships that we have, the communication, the transparency, the modernization. So I look forward to working with all of you as well.
Appreciate it.
All right, so a little bit of orientation. So I'm going to paint this picture with a messy chart. It's very noisy, but there's a couple of indicators that I want to throw out there as financial practice, some things that help me when I'm looking through this big table. So I've added, this is through what we call period 6. So it's halfway through the year, through the end of December. And first of all, the revenue. So I'm still working on understanding and kind of churning through some of the data that comes out. But traditionally, when you pull data out of Banner, it renders as a negative number. So that's why you're seeing revenue as negative. So it maps out. So you flip it in your head when we're going through the slide, it might make a little more sense. I've also added a year-to-date burn rate, which is, it's actually a utilization rate. So how much we've used of our budget so far kind of helps us give a picture of what we've gone through so far, like our projections of we're saying that we're going to get this much revenue and we've already seen that much come in the door. I've also added a year-over-year variance amount, which kind of helps us triangulate to another point to kind of analyze. So when we look at the prior year, I usually just do the year before. So that's kind of what you're seeing on the screen right now. So don't worry, I'm going to summarize. So I'm going to go through and kind of talk about all the points, but just that noisy chart this is what we're using as we talked a lot about art already. So I'm going to use this as my paint, right, to paint the picture. So any questions about the chart before I summarize?
And you're okay with questions during your presentation or great. Thank you.
We can move on.
Any questions? Seeing none.
Yep. All right. So in our gut, we've all felt like there's just a lot more activity happening on campus. We've seen increased enrollment. We've seen more things happening. So we've already been through an ice storm. I've been here 2 months. We've done the holidays in the ice storm, and I'm kind of like, wow, this is exciting work. So that's kind of what you're seeing in the numbers, more or less, right? So we've seen increased enrollment. So obviously we have tuition and revenue increasing. So you see that in the numbers also. We're kind of at a 60-ish% utilization rate, or that burn rate. Whereas halfway through the year, we'd say normally we'd expect to see about half of that with some discrepancy. So that's good news. On the flip side of that, you also see increased expenses because we have increased activity. So you grow, you do a little bit of on both sides of the chart, right? So operating expenses slightly down, but I think when I look at year over year historical data, that's mostly timing. So I made a note there that there's some operational expenses that will hit later, and I'll talk about that a little bit in another slide. We've seen our state funding come in as we expected. And then overall, and I'll talk about this also at the end of the presentation when we talk about burn rate, we're kind of hitting it right on the nose, right? So we're doing really well with what we projected. And so now we want to keep that momentum going. We're only slightly elevated because we've seen more activity on campus. So, all right. Summary of revenue. So we've seen state funding come in as we expected. Our third quarter payment, so the state gives it to us in 4 chunks. We've received the first 2, so that's what we're seeing in the year to date so far. And we have, and I confirmed this just a little while ago, that we have received most of the January quarter 3 payments. So that's kind of all coming together, and we'll see that start to accrue as we move through the budget cycle. Property taxes are also on track. We do a really good job of analyzing what property taxes are going to be. They come in the door at a very specific cadence, so we're on track with that. Tuition and fees, they're 13% up over year, and that's due to the enrollment. So just keep in mind that when we talk about increased enrollment, those are 2 different numbers, but what we're seeing now in our snapshot in time is that it's 13% up over last year at this point in time. And actually, I should clarify that the chart on the first slide is as of period 6, so it's not all the way through the year. So when you look back at prior years, it's not the whole picture of where we landed at the year.
The 22 million for property taxes, is that 23 or 24 but no, it wouldn't be 24 actuals, but we have it budgeted for 23 for 23.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
What we have budgeted right now is we're looking at FY24.
Which is the 25 million? Going back to the first slide there.
Yeah, can we go back to the first slide? One more.
Top left corner.
All right. So that's what we budgeted for FY24.
Okay.
Right. And so far in FY24, we've received 22 million of that.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. Miscellaneous other revenue, that's pretty much everything other than what you're seeing. And I'm looking at this from a pretty high level, but I gave some examples of what that includes. Insurance claim payments is what's really driving that. So the library fire, so we got a $1 million check from an insurance claim. So that's why it's up so much. Next slide. Okay, so expenses, as you know, it makes up the biggest portion of the pie of what our expenses are. So when we look at that, it's going to have the biggest ripple effect on the overall budget. So overall, they're up year over year, like I said, because of increased activity. So the only position category that was down year over year, so not burn rate, was the management position. And it's mostly, that's a really small variance, but I wanted to point it out because all the other positions were up because of increased activity. But overall, we have a lot of vacancies across the board. So that's driving what you'll see in the low burn rate and also the change in year over year. So we're making up for lost time for that year over year change with the other categories because of the increased activity with instruction, student employees and whatnot, but we're still playing a little bit of catch up with the vacant management positions.
Excellent. And Lisa has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious about the student employees. Do we have federal dollars for student employees?
Let's see. Yeah.
Sure.
The answer is yes, we do work study dollars. I wonder if Dr. Joyce is still on the line to speak to some of that. And if not, we can certainly get the board details on what
Great.
that work study program looks like.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we do get federal work study dollars through our financial aid office. We have a number of students on campus getting federal work study. We also have more domestic work study. We also employ some of our international students in some positions too. But yeah, pretty much every community college does. I can get numbers on students, things like that, and provide them to you. I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
So OPE, the expenses that we're seeing, they're also holding steady for what we expected. So we look at what our current OPE rates are, the overall benefits that roll into that whole package, and they more or less tie out. So that's, we'll be doing a further analysis of what our OP rates will change to next year, and then coming through the budget cycle, a whole bunch of stuff that goes into calculating the OP rates, as you can probably imagine. So we'll have more on OPE later.
Quick question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Slightly off topic, but you did mention the ice storm. And I'm just wondering whether we at Lane accumulated enough, special expenses to apply for FEMA reimbursement.
We did go through that process, and I think John and Stephanie could probably talk to that a little bit more than I could.
John and maybe Shane. I don't know if Don is close by.
What I know about that right now is we have calculated, and collectively we've come together with the expenses that we did see, overtime use and things like that for personnel. And Jennifer Hayward in facilities is really spearheading that effort to anticipate whether or not, we cross that threshold or not. She's evaluating that currently.
Great. Thank you.
All right, next slide. Operating expenses. It was interesting looking at this year over year because it was down compared. And in my mind, I would expect operating expenses to go up as activity increases. But when you pull the data apart, it's mostly bigger ticket items that just don't have a routine cadence year over year. So things like the software contracts for our finance software, some election costs we don't have this year because everyone's sitting in the chair they should be in. Outside contracts, they also don't have a real rhythm either, so they could hit later in the year. Also, property insurance, we're expecting that at any moment, and we're expecting that to increase as everything else has cost. So that's I expect that the expenses will catch up over the next couple of months, and we'll be able to cover that in future presentations.
Excellent. Lisa?
Would you give a couple examples of outside contract services?
Yeah. So these would be things like building maintenance costs, or if we have a third-party vendor coming in to do some work for us across campus, those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you.
So I wanted to point out visually the burn rate that we're on. And so far in the year, the yellow line is kind of where we expect it, we're halfway through the year, so 50%. And this is just a good visual example of what it looks like so far year to date. And I see that I have it's actually FY 23, 24. So we're in FY 24. Sorry about the error there.
Anyways.
But you can see that our revenue is up and expenses overall, if you aggregate it together, are lower than the burn rate. So I just wanted to kind of use that as an example of how we're kind of moving through time and this target changes. So this is our first pass at looking at a snapshot in time. And so as we go through the year, I expect things to kind of tighten up a little bit more as they do. And if you look at, you can't really see it on the screen very well, but you could probably see the table below it that kind of looks at other burn rates in the prior years. And you can see that they're more or less the same. Yep. So like this year, our burn rate overall is 66, which is slightly higher. If you give us an extra decimal point, it's slightly higher. So if we go to the next slide, I can give a better example of that. So this is our aggregate burn rate. So the yellow line is where the target should be. And then the columns are the prior years. Are, if you add all of everything together over time, you can see our expenses and our revenue grows. The blue line is this year. So it's following the trend, but it's poking up just slightly above, showing that elevated activity. So when we have this collective feeling of like, this is great, there's a lot more activity on campus, things feel like that. This is where this maps out in the data. We're right on the nose with where our budget is. And so it doesn't mean that because we have increased revenue, we're going to have extra resources. It just means that there's increased activity. So things we're going to keep an eye on as we go through the year, obviously enrollments, filling those management vacancies and the other vacancies across the board. And then other expenditures that'll hit later in the year, like the ones that it's talked about. Transfers out, we talked about correcting sub funds in Fund 9. And then large one-time expenditures that happen with life. So.
Yep. Go ahead, Steve.
I remember from the fall, I think it was something that came out of one of the suggestion box essentially. So, from my perspective, anonymous, I can't check it. All of that. But nonetheless, there was a concern expressed that perhaps we didn't have adequate controls over P-card spend, right? And so we had budgets set, but folks might, overshoot whatever it was on their P-card. To what extent are you able to, do you have controls to look into that and see that those kinds of expenses are tracking according to the associated budgets?
I think we're working on building those out. So definitely room for improvement. I know that college finance is working on building out more systems, more processes. The budget office, we're working on building more monthly routine reports. Our software that we use for budgeting is pretty out of date. So I would love to get something more modern to be able to track that routinely, send regular reports out to people. And then I think it's really important too, the collaboration piece. Because budgeting is not a one-person job, it's everybody's involved. So it's a matter of building those relationships with budget partners. So the deans, directors, project coordinators to talk about proper spending, the training on how to charge your specific lines, and kind of they have questions, they know they can come to us. And I've already seen that starting to change a little bit.
Absolutely. Laura, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Let me a little bit explain about the PCAT procedures. We have been issued all the use and end use, and then we have a general guideline for the PCAT, and also that we are working very closely with the department managers, and we review regularly. And then we have monthly review and then expenses, and also that we double checking out the limit and other things. So mostly is that PCAT is for the emergency and then minor things, but we are keep closely on the PCAT usage.
Excellent. Thank you so much for adding that additional detail there. Thank you. Question in regards to going back to slide 8, and specifically around the aggregate burn rate. I just want to understand this chart a little bit more. Obviously, the blue line goes to 2024. Are the preceding bars there titled 1 through 12? Is that quarters, years? So you see at the bottom of the chart there, it's 1 through 12 and so forth.
Those are periods, so months.
Periods.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Starting in July. Yep. So our fiscal year starts July 1. So that would be a period 1 through 12.
Gotcha. Is there, so obviously this is a prediction of aggregate burn rate is there a benefit to using aggregate burn rate for short-term? Let's see. Yeah, this would be expenditures. So is there a benefit for aggregate burn rate for this short of a time period, or is that usually better for like long-term planning?
It depends on what your cycle is. So if we would have a 2-year biennium budget, we could look at doing a 2-year burn rate. But I think what this more gets at is where we're at in time. And so this actually isn't a projection. It's the actual burn rate.
It's the actual burn rate, and but it continues through the months essentially.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you take fiscal years 22 and 23, that's what you're seeing on the screen. Those are actuals. This is the only slide, I guess I should specify, that didn't take into consideration where we're at in time. The prior years it's the full year.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That helps clarify a few different things for me. Appreciate it.
That's it. That's all I got. Another question.
Excellent. Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for this information. There have been a couple years when I have felt like a board member, like not understanding if we were on track to stay within our budgeted means. And so this was really great information. And I appreciate not only how you gave us the chart, but then you like really broke it down. So it was really accessible to me. So thank you. I've always kind of wondered, what happens to money we don't spend in the budget? I mean, like every department has a budgeted amount. I know some money's encumbered in the college. Do those stay in the account, like in their budget accounts, or so that they can kind of save it up over time, spend it on big ticket items, or does it get cycled back in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most institutions have a separate process for what that's carry forward, right? So at the end of the year, we have a certain amount that's broken out of our orgs and our funds, and we go through kind of a separate mini budget process where we go out to our budget partners and say, hey, how do you want to budget this? And it can go however you want to do it. Here at LCC, and I'm still trying to understand the carry forward process, honestly, so I can come back with more information on that process. But we have certain accounts that we do carry forward. So like our ICP accounts, those accrue revenue that's for the long-term purpose. And so that does go into a process where we talk about carrying that forward. In the grand scheme of things, it all kind of gets sucked into that ending fund balance, and then we roll that forward. So it's net working capital is the technical term for it, but it's another way of saying carry forward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Any further questions? Excellent. Look at that. We're making up time. It's great. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is retention progress report.
Yes, I would like to introduce Dr. Joyce to cover this topic. We have promised a report on enrollment and also on retention, and this is the retention progress report. And so, Dr. Joyce.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am happy to present. If I can go to slide 2, please. I'm going to talk about basically last time I did an enrollment report, we looked at enrollment and retention over the past 15 years. So you could see that that long swing downward when we went from significant enrollments to really about a couple of years ago hitting a low, and then we've done this like a short rise out of that area to a point where we were a few years ago before COVID. So this information in this retention report, I'm going to be talking about fall to fall retention from 2015 to present. So over a course of a year, our retention rates, and then basically colleges and universities, they really look at the fall to winter retention rates as being a primary metric to understand what's going on at your institution, what you need to work on. If you can get students through that fall to winter period, you've got more chance of keeping them. And I did want to mention Beth Landy, one of our wonderful faculty, mentioned earlier about first year experience. It's something we need to look at bringing back here. We do need to look at in some way, shape, or form of helping students throughout that entire first year to help them with the supports they need, the programming they need. We have a lot of things going on right now, but we need to be comprehensive in how we do that. So if I can go to slide 3, please. So the left hand, so basically this is fall to fall retention from 2015 to present. The left hand column, these are all degree seeking students in each one of these charts, by the way. The left hand column, you'll see the years, the number of students enrolled, the year-over-year change in enrollment, and then you'll see the fall to fall retention. And if you look through it, our new student retention pretty much fluctuates between about 46 and 49% retention rate for new students from 2015 until 2019. There was a big drop in 2020, of course, when COVID happened, and then it jumped up to kind of the norm again in fall of 2021. And then we had a significant jump of 3%, which is the highest in a number of years that we gained in fall to fall retention for new students. If you look at the graph on the right, the table on the right, you'll see something quite similar. You've got, this is fall term, all degree seeking students, not new students, but all students. So you'll see the numbers, of course, 8,019 in the left column, and you can see that huge drop that we had until recently, and we're just starting to rise up again. We had that 10% increase in enrollment in fall 2023. So if you look here at the fall to fall retention rates, you'll see that again, 48 to 49%. And similar to fall of 2022, we've seen an increase to 52%. Of course, we don't have the numbers for the students who arrived in fall of 2023 until next year. I'm hoping to see something similar. This may be a bounce back due to COVID. There's a fluctuation between 2020 and 2022, huge fluctuations. And it might be more students coming back and re-engaging and continuing on. Although we were starting some retention initiatives in 2022, and those might have also impacted it, retention via relationship, momentum scholarships and things like that, but they would more, I think, impact this year as we move forward. We could move to the next slide, please.
And Dr. Joyce, would you accept questions during your presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. Mike?
So you mentioned the desirability to reinstitute or redevelop the first year program, and I'm just wondering if that's being factored into our budget planning.
As of now, it isn't. I have looked at possible Lane Forward funds to help in some areas. There's some, we have the functional areas, and I think we have the staffing, we have the faculty, we have the possibility of doing it. If we can get our different components to work together well, I think it's a possibility. We might need some investment in staffing, but I think primarily we do have most of what we need to implement.
Go ahead, Mike, with a follow-up.
I think we're really good at figuring out ways to stretch staff thinner, but if we're going to make an impact, it seems like we may need to spend some money there if we really want to make a difference. That's my thought.
I would be happy with that. Absolutely. Please, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd be happy with a board vote on that one. Thank you.
Me too. A quick question. Well, actually a comment and a question. I mean, I'm like looking at these numbers and gosh, fall of 2020, man, like almost 20% enrollment
Yes.
change. Yeah, obviously, you know, in the midst of the pandemic and all that stuff. But yet there is a 41% retention. Kind of explain that number to me, because I would think that if there was that big of a, especially a drastic jump, wouldn't that great impact the fall to full retention as well?
So that one, it was that was a drop in enrollment in 2020. So it was new students. This is new students. So we had an 18% drop or 19% drop in new students.
Oh, okay.
That was primarily what it was. It wasn't necessarily a fall defaulting. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it was essentially new students, but when the students we had, we retained?
We retained at a lower level.
Gotcha,
We had
lower level.
5% lower than the year before, or 8% than the year before that. So we did see retention dropping in those new students, and in the fall to fall, what would be more like the continuing students, enrollment was down, but we retained a similar number of the continuing students that year.
Gotcha.
But it was new students that didn't persist.
Understood. Gotcha. Understood. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the clarification on that.
Thank you. Any other questions, or can we move to slide, next slide?
Oh, my apologies. Lisa has her hand up. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay.
I'm curious how we compare to other community colleges, and I mean, not even just Oregon, but nationally.
We actually, we're working, I'm working with IR and a group right now where we have comparative colleges. Chemeketa is one, Mount Hood's another, and there are about 3 others throughout the country that we're looking at. And we're gathering that information right now. And so I'd love to present that at a future board meeting. I think if we look at our fall to fall retention, we're a little lower than some of the, my colleague colleges, but I would like to actually present data on that. I know Kathy in IR, I think she's sitting back there, has gathered a number of information about that. And I'd like to share that in a separate report, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And we had an EAB presenter on campus, I think October, November, that showed us some of that information as well. All right. And so this one, this is some demographic information. Or did we jump ahead? Okay, retention demographics. So this is students we retained from fall of 2022 to 23 on the left, all degree seeking students, and then new to Lane students. And so, so if you look at this, if we look at the students we have here, and you'll see what most of them, we've done a pretty good job of retention for, you know, female, male. It's pretty much averaged each of the last couple of years. But I think one of the most interesting facts on this part of the report, if you look at 25 to 40 and 41 and over, we, if you look at the 41 and over, for instance, you'll see all degree seeking students over the course of the year, 67% retain. We'll see fall of 2022, the number is lower. It's 56% the new students. But if you look at 23 to 24, we did a better job of retaining the 41 and older students, a significantly better job. We about 9% higher. And you'll also see with the 25 to 40, those have increased a little bit too. I think so. The adult students who are coming to us have stayed at higher numbers. The others are pretty much the same across the board, but you know, male, female percent retained, 24 and under. And then I'm going to go into more demographics on the next slide, where we'll see a little bit more information, please. So on this one, you'll see that retention demographics, you'll see all degree seeking students on that left column, new to Lane, what percentage were retained on that next column. And then on the right side, you'll see the comparison fall of 23 to winter of 24. If you look at the Native American population, we've looks like we've lost a bit of ground there. Also, we've improved a little bit when it comes to the retaining of Asian students. We've lost some ground on the African American students, just a little on international. Latinx, we have increased our retention rates fairly significantly. And also, if you go down to students with prior college, we've made some great gains there. And students with Pell, we've also had a significant improvement, and Oregon Promise. So in some areas, we do have some work to do with some of our students, Native American for sure, Asian and Black African American students. I think those are areas we need to focus on. We have some great people in our multicultural center. We have some great recruiters, admissions. We have a JEDI program. We have a lot going on. And I think if we can help each other concentrate on these students, we'll do some great work. But I think that was the last slide in this. I did want to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Denise had a question. Go ahead, Denise.
Yes, Denise.
So if we make an assumption, especially in relationship to the years right after COVID, that offering hybrid and online courses has a relationship to retention, and it's an assumption. It might be interesting to include the data of how many. I mean, I'm aware of my former community college where the number of online courses increased significantly over a period of a couple of years, almost from
Yes.
3 to a lot, and also hybrid. So to whatever degree we think there may be, I think correlation is the right word. There, it might be interesting to include, if that's available, data as that goes along, because I think we can safely say that that is something that students are looking for now, and attract students, the more transferable and courses that they want, that they can access either hybrid or online, the more flexible we are.
If I can respond quickly, thank you, Denise. Nationally, hybrid courses have better retention rates than fully online, and often community colleges, they have better retention rates than face-to-face. But I can have that data for one of our presentations too. I think that's a definite thing we need to look at, and we do offer, I think, between 30 and 40% of our courses are online. And I've been talking with a number of our athletes in our athletic department recently, and our men's basketball team is entirely 100% online because of the field. They're on the road so much, they complete their associate's degrees online. Business students do it. So we have that possibility for students to complete online in some areas at the college.
Thank you.
Excellent. Zach?
Thanks. Could we go back to the fall to fall slides, please? You say the question about how we're measuring success with regards to retention and where students go on from Lane, in that, if we retain them also, but a transfer or somebody getting a job might also be considered a success. And I wonder what we're doing in that space to track any of that information.
We're tracking a lot of this. I don't know, is Kathy there? She'd be able to speak to how we're tracking this data, because I know we're tracking the number of students who graduate, the number of students who receive the credential that they've earned, the number of students that don't. We struggle to some extent tracking students who go to a four-year college, whether they get a bachelor's degree or not. We're working with U of O and OSU, meeting with them regularly now to work on reverse transfer so we can award students an associate's degree if they transfer early. So we're doing those things. As for the ones that get positions out in the workforce right after leaving here, I'm not sure how we're tracking that. I don't know if Kathy's there to help answer that one.
Kathy, is that something you would be prepared to do? Kathy's coming to the podium.
So we do track all of our graduation completions and our transfers. And I'm more than happy to help Colin or Shelley present those data in the future. And we utilize the National Student Clearinghouse for that transfer information. So we do know where they went. Not every school actually supplies their grad data in there. They do talk about who's admitted and what percent they stay in terms of term over term, as well as if they're full-time or half-time at those schools. But not every school tells the ending graduation year.
Does the clearinghouse go into Department of Labor DOL databases for employment?
No, employment is a whole nother
Deal. Yeah.
deal. And until even within our state, we have data systems that talk to each other, we're behind the curve for that information.
Understood. Did that answer your question, Zach, or did you have a follow-up?
I have another question. But just as a follow-up, if I'm hearing correctly, we do have some data on transfers, but we don't have the data for if someone's getting placed in a job.
Correct.
Versus if they've become unemployed and dropped out and we don't know what's going on. Okay. And follow-up question, I guess, or another question is around for the students that we do have the data for fall to fall or fall to winter, do we also have the data on whether they're on track to graduate from their degree program on time?
That's a larger question that we have a system, Degree Works, that we utilize that the students have access to, as well as advisors. In terms of global numbers, no, I don't have those.
So, Dr. Joyce?
I'm interested in seeing globally or even within programs, what percentage of students that are enrolled in that program are on track to graduate either on time or in 3 years or whatever the metrics are, but to get a sense of are we moving our students through successfully in the time frame that they are hoping to move through. Thank you.
And if I can also add, our advising departments working and enrollment services are working with faculty now, Jennifer Fry, Grant, and the deans to create degree plans so students are better able to plan out their entire time at the college and to be able to assist them in finishing in the time they want to finish in and understand that more. If you're taking 15 credits versus 12 credits, how soon you'll finish and making sure you get the degree requirements that fit with it. And I did want to mention too, we are also working on mid-cycle. We're doing a deep dive on retention when it comes to the mid-cycle accreditation, and we're doing a program. It'll take a little while to get the data, but comparing ourselves to 40 and other colleges, Shelley just reminded me that's one of the things we're working on right now. So we should get that information at some point to share.
Excellent. Denise?
Thank you.
So often data is collected differently for certificate programs and retaining students who are in certificate programs. Are we able to do that?
If a student's declaring that they're in a certificate program, we're able to do that. Sometimes a student might say they're doing a transfer degree, but earn a certificate on the way. And so it can be a bit trickier to gather that information, but we can track that information, yes.
All right. We're well over, unfortunately, the time allotted, but it was a really great conversation, really good discussion, really good questions. Dr. Joyce, Kathy, once again, thank you for being a part of this conversation.
Thanks to Kathy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, next we got the academic affairs update. Dr. Bolger.
Yes, we have an academic affairs update and a student affairs update. These are common in the board regular meetings, and so we'll have Dr. Tinkham and then Dr. Joyce will follow.
Excellent. Oh, don't forget the microphone. Yep.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Good evening, board members. In the spirit of positive developments, I want to share a few highlights with you, some of which are mentioned in my report. Academic Affairs hosted the Spring 2024 Dean and Faculty Forum just this past Friday. These forums are new. They're short and they're very focused, and they allow academic affairs the opportunity to build relationships between faculty and administrators and have discussions about our shared commitments to our students. In response to feedback received during the fall forum, we featured a panel composed of students who were asked to share their experiences. The discussion generated some great insights. It was fun to host students. And they also gave us some great suggestions, one being hosting a similar panel, but with faculty and deans on the hot seat and the students asking the question. And I responded with a thumbs up. So I'm looking forward to that one. And so we'll have our next Dean and Faculty Forum in April. Student affairs and academic affairs. I'm stealing a bit of thunder from my student affairs colleagues. We're making great strides towards making one-year registration an operational reality through ongoing implementation of our EAB Navigate software. So this will provide students with the opportunity to eventually just register once. This helps with some of the ideas we were talking about today with degree progression, with reducing stress on advisors. And it's a best practice that community colleges are engaging in. We already offer summer and fall registration at the same time. We already do that. And the idea now is to open winter 25, so a year from now, and spring of 25 and fall of 24. So I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but we're absolutely delighted that we're making progress in those areas. And we look forward to providing you with updates. We've also been making great progress in the area of institutional effectiveness and planning. The first has to do with academic program review. Academic program review is a process that institutions engage in where you do a very deep dive in one particular academic area. It's usually on the cycle of every 7 years. So it's very detailed. We're looking at learning outcomes, courses, and so it's very involved. The All Faculty Academic Oversight Program Committee has made the decision to include a dean to its membership as a non-voting member in response to my observation that doing so would enhance the process and allow deans and faculty to better work together, improve transparent sharing of information, would allow the deans to actually be able to implement some of these recommendations, and to really utilize this process to better enhance the programs and the educational quality of our programs that we have. I believe he left, but Phil Martinez, he's our Dean of Social Science, is serving in that inaugural role. I'm also happy to report that we have implemented an inaugural academic program portfolio review process. This is the first time that we have done this here at Lane, to my knowledge. A subcommittee of the Institutional Effectiveness Commission, or IEC, made a number of recommendations for academic program portfolio review. Portfolio means you're looking at everything last academic year that academic affairs operationalize into this inaugural process. We've been working very closely with institutional research to make this a reality. This is being done as we speak. We implemented the process just a couple of weeks, I think 1 week ago, and we will start getting these reports from our deans. It is a transparent and process. It's an integrated process with both deans and faculty. The data is posted on our website, as is the process, and it is meant to include the recommendations of academic program review. So it is a qualitative and a quantitative process. It is a pilot, and so I'm really looking forward to getting those results. And I believe that is all I have.
Appreciate that.
Any questions for me?
A question from Zach. Go ahead.
Hi, just wanted to say how thankful and happy I am that you're making forward progress on allowing students to register 2 terms in advance. I think it's going to make it a lot easier to help people plan out their work and school life balance and plan their degree programs and be successful. So I'm just very happy to hear progress in that area. Thank you.
Excellent. Denise and then Lisa. Denise?
Thank you. So I'm familiar with program review and its relationship to a department's budget, because often in program review, materials, equipment, that kind of thing comes up. So is there, how is that, how is all of that tying in when the deep dive is taken on the programs?
That's a great question. And I believe it's something that we can do a better job with here at Lane. Some of our processes right now are not as integrated as we would like them to be. So the idea is the academic program review sometimes takes place in isolation, not necessarily in isolation. If there's not good communication between the dean and the faculty, some of that information can get lost. So hence, that's one of my observations. If we have dean representation on the committee that's overseeing that process, then we can kind of weave that in. So again, that's done every 7 years, and that's done from the perspective of the academic program. It's not a portfolio process. So that's what we're developing now. Now, the whole idea is that eventually, when we have a perfect system, inaugural annual planning, academic program review, and portfolio review and strategic planning are all integrated, and budgeting is all integrated into a very similar system. In my report, I mentioned that myself, Tammy Stark, who's the chair of IEC, and Kate Sullivan, a faculty member who's chair of APROC, we were very fortunate enough to receive a fellowship through the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities to work on this. So I think your question is, how does all of this work together? How do we inform each other? Those are processes that we're working on now, but we're hoping that when we do this annually, then we can have those discussions right then and there every single year, go back to the most recent academic program review and inform ourselves of what we need to do to keep our programs vital.
Excellent. Lisa?
I would love to have additional information about this at some point, because my understanding is we have had academic program review. We've had program review here at the college. So I'm curious, what were the recommendations from the subcommittee? You know, how is it looking different from what we've seen as a board in the past? What's the timeline going to look like? And I don't expect to get all that information right now, but I would love to hear more about it in the future.
I can address perhaps one misunderstanding. Yes, absolutely. We have had academic program review on this campus, and that was established, I believe, that was 2013. And I know APROC was established in 2014 or 2015. You are correct. What we haven't been doing is portfolio review. And portfolio review is an annual process where you look at quality indicators, enrollment indicators of all of your programs, often in comparison to one another, but also specific to that program as well. That's the process that hasn't been happening. It's that annual, because APR only happens every 7 years. So if you're not staying on top of your portfolio in each and every program, in 7 years, something can change quite a bit. So the idea of the portfolio review is that you're constantly assessing through an annual process through these different lenses, and then you make adjustments. For example, perhaps you notice that your enrollment is declining. You don't want to wait 7 years before making an adjustment. So that's the difference. There's portfolio review, and then there's academic program review. So I think part of it is just the terminology.
Great, thank you for that clarification. And we have had what you're using the term portfolio review in the past. Our previous provost did utilize that to bring changes to programs to the board. But I don't know, I don't believe it was annual, and it doesn't sound like it was as fully integrated as what you're suggesting. So at some point in the future, I would just love to hear more about how this is coming together. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, and this is based more on your report, I wanted to acknowledge the work that you did with the Child Care Resource and Referral and the Lane Small Business Development Center. That was really a big accomplishment, and the lack of childcare has been in the news very frequently in the last couple of months, in the last year or two, and it's really a big issue statewide. So thank you so much for that work.
Thank you so much. Dr. Joyce, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I've got some updates, some things that made our student affairs report and a few things that didn't. We had a small group, student affairs and from academic technology, meeting with Russ Pearson and some staff from Florence and also some staff from Cottage Grove. And kind of the focus of the meeting was trying to understand the needs and of the staff and the students in those areas and how we can better support them moving forward. So we got some ideas. We're going to get a small group together at our main campus, and we're going to work with try and figure out better ways to help support our satellite campuses and things, maybe a couple of things might have dropped off since COVID that we need to kind of improve upon. And I think both were shut down because of the construction and development. And so we got to figure out how to better serve the students, especially in a more of a online environment, which was brought up earlier. I did want to mention just another mention about Titus Kafar's came up a few times, but I just recognized, and also Bliss Newton, she did a big part in making that happen, probably the lion's share of the work, and I just wanted to call her out for that. Also, we had Avery Coyote from our Multicultural Center, one of our great faculty members, a new addition in this last year to Lane. He brought up to the Diversity Council that he really wanted to do a better job of working with enrollment services to track our Native students in a better way so we can better support and work with them at Lane. And so we're working to help him make that a reality and then go figure out where our students are coming from, which tribes they're representing, and also reaching out to those tribes to try and create better partnerships and relationships. Avery is also chairing the search committee for the new Longhouse steward. So that's starting up. And then one of the student-led initiatives, the students came to the student council to ask about at least one building that had longer hours for students to study and to hang out. And so We worked with Jennifer Hayward in facilities, campus safety, and other groups. And we now have the center building open from Monday to Thursday from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, and from on Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So and apparently it's been getting well utilized already. So we're glad to see that happening. I did want to mention, I know Sawyer had mentioned earlier about students getting dropped from classes and things like that. We did have a meeting during the storm to lengthen the ability for students to drop classes and still get refunded and things like that. So we did try to work with them. Everything wasn't perfect. Some students struggled to get online, but we tried to work with students individually as best we can to help them out, and we'll continue to do so. Then I did want to mention again the Titan Food Pantry during the ice storm and that last weekend. I did want to mention Anna Tapia Gates, Carl was there both days, Jane Reeder, Stephanie, Shelley, they were both there as well. I just want to mention a couple of other people. Then right now I'm in Portland at the Sheraton Hotel next to the airport. We have a group here from Student Affairs. So we have advisors, and we have people from enrollment like Dawn's here, Rosa Maria, Bliss. We have some advisors, and it's a success and retention conference. So what we're doing is professional development, trying to get better at what we do, learning from other colleges, learning from national speakers, things like that. And we look to bring that stuff home. And at the same time, what's really great is one of our faculty is also here, Jim Garcia from our Multicultural Center, and he's doing a presentation on recentering Latinx student experiences through a decolonized pedagogy. So we're well represented here. Dawn, Rosa Maria, and also Bliss are doing a presentation. They're part of the enrollment work group that's worked on retention via relationship with Kathy, Kyle, and a group of others, to Rebecca from marketing, to really focus on ways to encourage students to register, to help them register, to communicate, to reach out, looking for gaps. And so they're here to do a presentation on some of the successes they've had. And I think part of that 52% bump is what they're talking about. Last thing I've got is following up on Mandy's presentation earlier. Our women's basketball team won the game tonight. So it went into overtime and they won. So
Wow,
they're doing great things.
Thanks for that update. Denise.
I just want to follow up and see if I understood correctly that did some students experience that they were dropped because they could not get online during the storm? Did I understand that correctly?
I think some students, what happened is I think they weren't able to attend classes for longer. We really tried to work with faculty on anyone that reached out to us to help help them work with the students to give exceptions. I'm not sure if any I've not heard of any for sure who were dropped because of that. But Dawn in our enrollment services area will be able to let me know for sure. But I know I was getting emails from students. Shelley was. We sent emails out to all of the students on campus to let them know that we're willing to work with you, and that we told them that there were no classes being taught during that week, whereas face-to-face, online, or anything, because a lot of our faculty were unable to teach. And so we didn't want, whether our students, some of them didn't have electric, faculty didn't have electric, and it just depended almost the neighborhood you were in, different part of the county. So we really tried to be thoughtful and preemptive with that. And And then some students were unable to get on for even a week after that. And I think some faculty members too. Yeah.
Well, whoops, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, it looks like you're muted, Denise.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I thank you so much for that, because I'm aware that, and I don't think I'm using the right term. I'm going to say the word extension, but there's actually a more technical term with a short contract that sometimes is available for situations that are of an emergency type in order to, get the coursework done. And of course, now that there's extended hours till 10 o'clock, those two things can certainly be very useful to students catching up and just trying to come, to the end of the term in a good way, even given this setback, right? I mean, obviously no one could have predicted it. So thanks for all you're doing. And
absolutely. And well, no, thank you. It's the staff that are doing it, trust me, but and the faculty who are willing to do more as well. And I got to say that I've worked at a few places during my career, and I was really impressed by how quickly the college pivoted during the ice storm and how they continued to do what we do. And no one, it didn't seem like a fuss. I think maybe because we live in Oregon, we have fires, we have floods. It's a land of ice and fire, but I think it was wonderfully done. And I was really proud of staff, faculty, the students for all taking their part and just not blinking,
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, faculty, classified professionals, and everyone, the cabinet, for everything that you've done during the ice storm. I think we obviously did appreciation for some of our public safety. We'll do appreciation tomorrow, but I absolutely want to echo that the great work that our faculty and classified professionals did. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, let's move on to the LCCA, LCCEF reports. Andrea.
Good evening, Board of Education members, President Bulger. Thank you for your attention to all of these critical topics over the course of this long meeting and for your volunteer service. Really appreciate it, especially on a long meeting like tonight. I'll provide some updates on 4 topics. The first one is solidarity. LCCEA stands in solidarity with our classified professional colleagues and who deserve a fair contract, and we urge you to reach a reasonable and respectful settlement without further delay. Regarding the ice storm in our land of fire and ice, I wanted to share that faculty have been busy working to rearrange curriculum and course plans and accommodating students after the disruption to the campus and to the whole community during the storm. LCCEA has provided a good number of emergency grants to faculty members in need after the storm, including one who had a 60-foot Douglas fir tree fall on their house. Our statewide organization, the OEA, is also offering relief funds for members, and the OEA Foundation is offering grants that members can access for students to meet basic needs. And we are thankful to be able to provide these resources to faculty and students alike. Another unrelated topic, we had, as you know, a separation incentive for full-time faculty last fall. The deadline for that came in during January. And we had 15 full-time faculty choose to resign or retire under the incentive program. This represents nearly 8% of the contracted faculty. So this is really substantial in terms of its impact on teaching and learning at the institution, as well as the college budget. It is with deep sadness that I report that one of the faculty members who is resigning but not retiring is one of our 3 faculty counselors who is a person of color and who, after filing a racial discrimination complaint and subsequently suffering more retaliation, was slated for layoff in September. There are no words that will suffice to adequately express the impacts of this loss on our campus and our community. We're losing one of our best. Under these conditions, it's extremely challenging to recruit faculty from historically oppressed groups, including people of color, let alone to retain the amazing faculty we have at LCC. We are asking you, as the Board of Education members representing the people of Lane County, to effect change on our campus, which includes a restoration of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, including replacement of AVP Greg Evans' position in order to provide leadership, professional development, and direction to help guide LCC to become the safe, inclusive, progressive, and just campus it can be. On another topic, I will talk about briefly the rollover of the faculty contract. The administration did not provide notice of the intent to negotiate to LCCEA, and the faculty elected to roll over the contract. This means that our contract will expire in June of 2025 instead of this June. Faculty who are eligible for regular steps will receive them, and salaries will be adjusted for inflation. The inflation index is based on a federal government index for the January to January period, so we won't know for a couple of weeks the exact amount, but the most recent estimate is 2.532%. This will provide both stability and predictability for faculty as well as for the institution. We think this contract rollover is simple and one that meets faculty top priorities and one that is exceedingly reasonable for the institution. I want to be really clear that this rollover also presents an opportunity and space to press pause on the labor disputes and the increasingly contentious labor relations on campus. We have one union, our dear colleagues of the LCCEF, in mediation, still negotiating after more than 7 months without a contract. And the LCCEF has not had to go to mediation in nearly 10 years. At the same time, the administration and LCCEA are scheduled for an unfair labor practice hearing in May, a hearing that's scheduled for no less than 5 days. We have not had an unfair labor practice go to hearing in well over 2 decades. As I'll keep my my comments about that brief. The ongoing unresolved LCCEF contract for classified, the long list of unfair labor practice claims that will go to hearing, these are incredibly disruptive to our campus and our community. We're asking for you to provide leadership as the Board of Education and direction to provide direction to the administration to make every effort to improve labor relations and to truly collaborate. The faculty have come forward in a concrete way to create an opportunity and space for better labor relations for the good of the campus, and we look forward to seeing what this opportunity presents. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And Frankie?
Good evening to everybody here. As you probably heard earlier, we held a rally tonight. Along with holding a rally tonight, we've had different members from different unions on campus this week, and different union representatives from all over the state of Oregon have been on campus this week working with us. I do want to report that one of the representatives from AFT that works with PCC was so excited to be on our campus today and was so amazed by how lively our campus is and how many students and employees we have on campus. He just couldn't believe it. And so it feels to me that Lane Community College is doing really great. Our members requested tonight that I read to you, since you guys were busy in here working, we could see your screen going. They requested that I read to you a little different version of what I spoke to our members about tonight. So it's been adjusted a little bit for you guys, but it's pretty much what I've said to everybody tonight. And also on our website, lccef.org, we'll put this on there. I'll email this to you, and we'll also have my rally speech on there tomorrow. So, tonight, as we classified professionals gather as a united force bound by our shared struggle and common cause It is time that the college administration and you, as the administration's bosses, hear our voices. For too long, classified professionals have borne the burden of injustice, sacrificing our own well-being for the sake of the institution that fails to recognize our worth. But no more. Today, we stand together to demand the respect, the recognition, and the fairness that we deserve. For those who don't know me, I am Frankie Kokenor, a medical assistant at our college's health clinic and an LCCEF union president. I ran for president of this union because I became tired of the lack of respect that the hardworking classified professionals receive from the administration and the low wages that we've been forced to accept. I, like my colleagues, am ready to fight and demand that this changes. You heard our opening letter during the public comment. That letter has 261 signatures from classified professionals alone. This is growing every single day with signatures from other staff at Lane Community College and from members of this community. We are fed up and we're not going to settle for less than what we are worth any longer. For the past 2 decades or more, we have watched our wages stagnate and our workloads multiply. We have seen our colleagues retire and leave for better paying jobs, only to have our positions left unfilled, burdening with us with even greater responsibility. We have watched as the cost of living soars while our paychecks barely keep pace. And through it all, we have remained silent, swallowing our frustrations and burying our grievances in the hopes that things would somehow get better. We put those hopes in the college to give us a fair shake. But hope alone has not brought about the change that we need, and this administration clearly isn't interested in making the change because our silence benefits them. Our silence helps to balance the budget that strategically devalues us. We will stay silent no more. Tonight, as we stand before the Board of Education, we have to speak our truth and to your power. Some tonight shared their stories, our struggles, and our frustrations, not as individuals, but as a collective voice for change. We demand answers and we demand accountability. Why have our raises been passed up time and time again, only to have the administration tell us that the cost of our benefits in relation to the salary is too high and propose stripping away benefits? Why have our positions gone unfilled, forcing us to shoulder the burden of ever-increasing workload without adequate compensation or support? Why have our voices been ignored, our concerns dismissed, and our contributions undervalued? At the core of it all, we are asking for respect. Respect for the tireless dedication that we bring to our jobs each and every day. Respect for the sacrifices that we have made to keep this college running smoothly, even in the face of adversity. And respect for our right to be treated as equals, not as disposable commodities to be used and discarded at will. Classified professionals are standing together, my friends, united in purpose and determined in resolve. We ask that you, the Board of LCC, direct your administration to settle a fair contract with us. We know that most of you are supportive. We know that most of management and even some of the administrators have our back, but remaining administrators need guidance from you on what is right, a fair and reasonable contract for the folks that have kept and continue to keep LCC running. Use the power that has been bestowed upon you by us, the working people of Lane County, and let us get back to work with a dignified contract. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to information reports. Lisa?
Yeah, I had a question about the facilities report. I'm not sure if Jennifer Hayward is here. Or it might be something, I don't know, John, it is kind of a fiscal financial question, but in the report, it mentioned that the math, science, engineering facility, which is, slated to have some significant remodeling, that the cost estimates significantly exceeded the budget, significant amount was. And so that they're redefining the scope significantly. And so I'm just wondering if we could have some additional information on how we will still achieve the core goals while redefining the scope significantly.
So I don't have that particular answer for you, but I did make a note of that and we will get back to you on it.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you. Steve, did you have something? No, my apologies. Zach.
A question on the same report, the baseball field synthetic turf installation. Are there any options to do non-artificial turf on those facilities? And what would be the options to look at?
Wasn't that already, I believe that was already done, wasn't it? Yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was already completed.
I'm sorry, Austin, did you get a response to that? Because
There's,
we might want to get a response to that as well. But Shelley, do you recall?
I recall that they've looked at that and that the art of, it is not possible, it's not feasible to use like natural grass, because that was one of my questions as well. But I think Colum's he's been more involved in this than I am, and I don't know.
Yeah, they did look into that. The bids, how long the turf lasts versus the artificial field. And it definitely, it's much more, I think, cost prohibitive to have a regular field. Also, we would, if we were to go with a baseball field, we would have to, we would be working on leasing it out to high schools and different groups around. There's a shortage of fields in the area for sure. And if you're using the turf field, it gets overused and it's not as good to play on. But the price over time definitely it's more cost prohibitive to go with the natural turf, and also in this climate, the artificial works better. Most like if you look over Springfield and the new ballparks around, they're all going with the artificial now.
Yeah, I've been looking at research into this that suggests that it's actually that those numbers. I've seen studies that actually suggest natural turf is cheaper to maintain and does not have issues around microplastics, PFAS, etc. And it's my understanding that many sports leagues, professional athletes do not want to play on these types of fields because of heat issues. I'd like information that you can, if you have any background information you can send to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And where it's located, it really is it's got a terrible drainage problem, and that's part of, I think, one of the main reasons we're looking at the artificial. Even in the middle of summer, water's bubbling up to the surface down there. But yeah, I know we've done some studies already, so we can provide that.
Excellent. Thank you. In regards to the College Council report, it was stated earlier, I think it was Anna Scott, I believe, said that the documents that were under that report have not gone to College Council. Can someone discuss that?
Anna, please discuss that.
Yes, thanks for the question. There is just one document that we received underneath that item, and that was from the Budget Development Subcommittee. And I just wanted to let folks know that I've heard some feedback from other College Council members wondering about the pathway as to which that information has gone to you at the Board of Directors. And so we'll be diving into that. You can join us next week on the 14th if you don't have any other exciting things to do. 2 p.m. We're going to look at the charter of the BDS and talk about how that request came to be. Just wanted to let you guys know, governance #awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, no, by the way, thanks for meeting on Valentine's Day. That's real love and dedication right there. I just wanted to bring that up because I do value shared governance, the shared governance process, and just wanted to make sure that those conversations are happening. And I really appreciate it being brought up. Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for including it. It was really interesting to review, and I'd love to hear in one of your future reports additional information.
Absolutely. You know, when I'm requested to provide information to the board, I will do so, and then we'll dive into the details. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Anything else from the reports? Seeing none, for the good of the order, board member comments, questions, and so forth. Anything? Oh, Denise.
I'd like to appreciate and thank the president and the cabinet and all the people that were mentioned who put together the program with Titus. I know that board member Kevin and I were there, and it was an extraordinary, excellent, outstanding program. And it was great that it was held over in the art area. It was, I think, very well received. And just congratulations on organizing and putting together such a meaningful program where his narrative, as well as his background, his narrative, and his accomplishments, I think just really hit home to so many people. He was just extremely genuine, and I think it was really well received. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for everything with that. Future meeting dates. The big, obviously we have the meeting dates scheduled there. The one thing I wanted to bring up in this section was in regards to the retreat that we had to cancel. And as chair, vice chair, and as the president would like to get some feedback from the board on this. For my initial conversations with the board members was that there really wasn't an interest to rescheduling the board retreat, instead to just continue it as canceled, but to have the items that we were to discuss be potential work session topics and so forth. I kind of wanted to hear the perspective and get feedback from the board if we should either choose to reschedule that retreat or to go ahead and cancel it and move those items into a work session discussion items. Seeing some, yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks. I would be in favor of rescheduling. I wouldn't support canceling. I think it's an important issue, and I would be in favor of having it be a closed session. That may not be the right term, but
Okay.
That'd be my thought.
Okay. Lisa.
Yeah, I'm in favor of having a retreat, but I'd like to have a retreat and not do it during a work session time. So, you know, the ad hoc committee material, we can talk about that in a work session. It's very work session-y. We only have so many meetings of the board to get our business done, and I would love to have a retreat, but I'd love for it to be scheduled outside of a board meeting time and for it to be more of a genuine retreat gathering.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, I know you also had a desire for like camaraderie building and stuff like that. And I would say that that's obviously really difficult in a 4-hour retreat schedule to develop that. It's kind of like, hey, team building and stuff. So, I mean, one of the discussion items to adhere to what Lisa was just saying, which is not to take up the board meeting times, was to have a potential weekend retreat, not a whole weekend, but like just a Saturday or a Sunday retreat, so it doesn't interfere with our meeting time periods, especially as we go into the budgetary session. Wanted to throw that idea out there. If there was any thoughts around that.
Well, I mean, voiced this before. I think that's part of the reason why, we agreed to schedule the one that we had, unfortunately had to get canceled during a weekday as a, so it's meant to still be a retreat, but during the weekday, not the weekends.
Understood.
So for me, I'll continue to, to perhaps be a minority opinion, but I'm trying to preserve my weekend time for other kinds of things. So I'll leave it at then.
No, appreciate hearing that. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I support going ahead and having a retreat. I've been advocating that we get back to equity lens for at least 2 years.
I agree.
And I don't think the training has to take a long time. You know, it's not a highly complex issue. It's just a matter of reacquainting ourselves with the process. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you think that that type of training could be covered in a work session though?
I think it could. I think it could.
Gotcha. Because yeah, those were the two major topics, was ad hoc committee and the equity training. I like Lisa, your term. What was it? It's work session-ish, or what was, yeah. Anyway, but so yeah, I feel like both of those topics are like work session like. So, and that we can establish those in future work sessions. Is there, hearing that from you, Mike, and with the ad hoc committee stuff, is there then a need for a retreat? Again, just trying to get the conversation going with that.
I would support a retreat, a separate time carved out.
Okay.
And I don't think the DEI issue could be taken care of in a work session in a way that would be meaningful.
Okay. Understood.
So I'm perfectly happy to consider this DEI broadly. What I've been talking about for 2 years is equity lens.
Yes.
Specifically. And I'm happy for us to consider DEI more broadly than that.
Understood. Great. Any other discussion? By the way, great feedback, by the way. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none. Thank you for that feedback. I'll bring this back to we actually have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, so we'll be able to discuss this further with the president. All right. Any other questions in regards to future meetings? Seeing none, we are going to move to adjournment. We do have an executive session scheduled, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Yep, excellent, great. So we are adjourned for the board meeting.